Morning, everyone. We're just going to check and make sure that we can be heard in the Zoom webinar. Matthew or Jake, can you hear us? Okay, so Matthew or Jake, can you hear us in the Zoom webinar?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Chair Crandall, we will be ready to begin on time.
Excellent. We're ready. Okay. So we'll call the meeting to order here at 9 a.m. It looks like we got almost a full house here. Our September 20th, 2022 meeting. Welcome to our Board of Supervisors meeting, and as customary, we will conduct a moment of silence, and I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Antoinette Snow of Upper Lake. She's preceded in death by her brother, Jib Snow, Lonnie Snow, and then also her father and mother, Pauline Snow and Robert Snow. She left at a very young age, and so we offer condolences to the community, the family, and so thank you. Vice Chair Pyska, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. All right. Next is item 4, consideration of extra items not appearing on the agenda. Are there any to consider? No, not as of now. All right. Yes. Oh, okay. All right. All right. So item 5, approval of a consent agenda. Consent agenda items are commonly items that are non-controversial. However, anyone from the public or from the Board of Supervisors can pull for a later discussion. And so are there any items to pull from the consent agenda? I know first and foremost there is 5.17, which will be pulled, and there's no other discussion or anything. And then 5.11 will be for a future date. I do know that there's been a request for 5.12 as well. And then Supervisor Spate, do you have any?
Yeah, I'd like to. Check. Hello? Check. Hello? There we go. 5.8, please.
5.8. And then, are there any others from the board? Okay. I'll open it up to the public. Are there any from the public? And Joan, you were raising your hand if you'd like to come to them. Okay. 5.8. So we have 5.8. And so what we'll do is the agenda seems pretty, it's pretty timely. So we're going to do most of those after 1. And so if anyone's here for a consent agenda item, we will be considering that after 1. And I won't fit any of those in. I'll fit the 7 points, non-timed items in between if need be. So that way people can come back and they don't have to worry about us addressing a consent agenda item for that. So I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve items 5.1 through 5.7, 5.9 through 5.10, and 5.13 through 5.16, and I think that's correct, from the consent agenda.
It is, all right.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. It looks like we're at 9:03. With that, I will let's see, so 7.5, we'll conduct that one, which is a Lake County Mental Health Board. And it looks like we have Camille Cummings. And so, are there any discussion from the board on this? No? I'll open it up to the public for 7.5 for the Mental Health Advisory Board. And I don't see anybody or no hands up. I will look again. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to appoint applicant Camille Cummins, or reappoint, as member-at-large for the Lake County Mental Health Advisory Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and motion carries. So that one we can take off the list. We're at 9:04.
Got 5 seconds.
Oh, good. Okay, come on. Let me just, there we go. So we're at our 9:05, Lake County Animal Care and Control Pet of the Week, and it looks like we have a friend here.
Good morning. My name is Haley Del Fiorentino. I'm an officer at Lake County Animal Care and Control. With me this morning is Rusty. He's a 2.5-year-old German Shepherd. For a German Shepherd, he's actually very mellow. But as you can see by my pants, he is shedding like crazy right now. He is currently in kennel 25. He's been with us for a little while. When he first came into us, he was really shy, didn't want to come out of the kennel, didn't really want to interact with anybody. Thankfully, due to our staff working with him at the shelter, he's really come out of his shell. Still doesn't know what toys are, but he does identify as a lap dog. Rusty, like I said, is in kennel 25. If anybody wants to come by and see him, we're located at 4949 Hellbush Drive in Lakeport, or they can give us a call at 707-263-0278. And just so everybody knows, we are having an adoption event this week, both Friday and Saturday. We're going to be at the Pumpkin Patch on Highway 29 from about 10 to 5.
All right. Do we have any takers? All right, thank you for that. All right, we'll move on to our next item, public input, our 9:06. And so at this time, if there's an item that's not considered on the agenda today, we will go ahead and I do have paperwork in for somebody, for Yvonne Cox, and then I see someone in the back with their hand up as well. Yvonne, you would be the first one, so if you'd like to come up and state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to...
Good morning. My name is Yvonne Cox. I'm the director and founder of Are You Hunger, a nonprofit I run in Lucerne, 22 years. I have been handling Lake County's problems for years, everything from your homeless to doing outreach where I give out tents, sleeping bags, food on a regular basis. I've worked every one of our fires. And recently, Elijah House folded, and I was called again, can you help us? I get called regularly from social services, Elijah House, behavioral health, just to name a few. But yet I'm not recognized enough to be given grants. These grants go to like Elijah House, and I'm still cleaning up the mess. I picked up 8 people that they threw on the street with no vouchers. Now, can you imagine if I was funded, what I could do? Look what I do with nothing. I have never received a grant from this county, not even acknowledgement. I have a congressional award. I don't want to be glorified. I want backing. I want to be able to take care of these problems so it's not taking out of my family's pockets that I'm being funded where it should come from, the county. Elijah House folded, and when they folded, threw everybody on the street, I was the first one they called. And of course, I showed up with a truck and a car. Took the people to my house. They're all clean and sober, nice young people. Just had a bad issue. They got thrown out with nowhere to go, and there was no support, and there was nobody in charge to think ahead where these people are going to go. So, of course, guess who they call? And, as usual, I clean up the mess, I pick it up, and then they all talk smack. Don't trust her. Okay, well, you trust me enough to solve your problems. I'm just here to say, if I can do what I do without funding, can you imagine what I could do if I was funded? I just want to be here to let you know I'm not going to stop doing what I do, but it would run a lot smoother, and I could help a lot more people if somebody took into consideration, I'm the one that's still cleaning up the mess. Thank you. Any questions?
Yvonne, we're not allowed to comment on public input items, but however, if there's someone you would like to talk to after, that can move forward on that. So I know that don't want to comment too much, but however, maybe Todd and I can talk with you at a later time in regards to some of this. Okay.
Just so my voice is heard.
Thank
I'm
you.
tired of being silent and doing all the work. Like I said, I could be a lot more effective and help a lot more people if we were funded. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other public input?
Good morning, everyone. My name's Savannah Fate with the Registrar of Voters Office, and I would just like to take this time to tell you about National Voter Registration Day, which is today, September 20th. It's a time to celebrate the voting process by making sure we are registered to vote, as well as members of our community, like our families and our neighbors. You can register to vote by going online at registertovote.ca.gov, or you can come visit us at our office at 325 North Forbes Street. You can also call our office at 707-263-2372, and we can mail you a voter registration form. They're also available at all the post offices and libraries in Lake County. It's very important to make sure that we're registered so we get our ballots on time for Election Day. And also, in the spirit of voting, I would just like to put out there that we also need people to work the polls. Currently, we are filled, but if anybody would like to be on our call list, if there's call-outs, we would love to have more people to contact to work on Election Day. I have voter registration forms with me in the back, as well as poll worker forms if anybody would like to register to vote today. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a
Oh, go ahead.
I have a quick question before you, I'm going to put you on the spot here, I'm sorry. When is the last day to register to vote for this upcoming general election?
So that's 15 days before the Election Day. I don't have that date right in front of me, but if anybody would like to know the date specifically, please call our office. We'd be able to give that to you right away.
So get registered before mid-October.
Yeah, October 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah.
Thank you. All right, any other public input? I'll look online. I don't see any hands up. So bring it back to the board for the next item on the agenda, 6.3, presentation of proclamation designating the month of September National Suicide Prevention Month, the week of September 4th through September 10th, National Suicide Prevention Week, and September 10th, World Suicide Prevention Day. And Supervisor Simon will read this proclamation.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead, keep squeezing. Here we go.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you. Let's see what we got.
Come on, we get everybody.
Plenty of room.
All right. Board of Supervisors, County of Lakes, State of California proclamation designating the week of September 4th through September 10th National Suicide Prevention Week. Whereas September is recognized as a Suicide Prevention Month, and the week of September 4th through the 10th, 2022 is National Suicide Prevention Week, at a time in which individuals, organizations, and communities around the country join their forces to amplify the message that suicide can be prevented. And it is recognized that people of all ages benefit from common tenets of wellness, such as access to effective health and behavioral health care, social support, and a sense of meaning and purpose. And whereas attitudes and perceptions about aging, behavioral health challenges, and suicide have a significant impact on individual wellness and the willingness to reach out for support and services that can alleviate distress. And whereas cultivating and maintaining wellness is a lifelong pursuit, and individuals of all ages can benefit from integrating wellness into their daily routine to prevent or reduce the severity of broad range of health and behavioral health problems. Whereas knowing the signs of suicide, finding the words to talk with someone that may be thinking of suicide, and reaching out to local resources are actions everyone can take to care for themselves and others. The Lake County Behavioral Health Prevention Team has trained 721 community residents in suicide prevention. All Californians are urged to take action for suicide prevention and promote mental health and wellness as we strive towards zero suicides by inviting more community members to contact Lake County Behavioral Health Services for information for the suicide prevention services offered. And whereas the month of September is recognized across the United States as Suicide Prevention Month, providing the opportunity to educate and engage everyone in our community to find their role in suicide prevention. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Lake County Behavioral Health Services and all members of the Lake County Board of Supervisors on the 20th day of September 2022 that the month of September 2022 be declared Suicide Prevention Month, and that the day of September 10th be declared World Suicide Prevention Day, passed and adopted this 20th day of September 2022, signed by the Chair of the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you so much.
Todd Metcalf, Lake County Behavioral Services. I'm not going to take up a lot of time because you know how long-winded I can be. I do want to point out, and this is awesome. Thank you, Board of Supervisors. We do need to recognize this. Lake County, unfortunately, has the distinction of having one of the highest, or if not the highest, suicide rate in the state. And so to shine a spotlight on this is, it's very humbling, but it's something that we need to be aware of and talk about. So there are other folks here. I don't know if anybody else wants to say something, but I will step aside. Thank you for this proclamation.
Good morning, and I just want to thank the board for helping us and supporting us through our outreach efforts to the community. We are, you know, as the proclamation stated, we've trained 721 plus people in question, persuade, refer, or mental health first aid. We also have the teen mental health first aid, which works with our youth. And we are just trying to really get the message out that it's okay to not be okay. And if, you know, you notice that someone is struggling or they have, you know, multiple challenges going on, talk to them. You know, just ask them how they're doing. And just have a conversation. And if they are suicidal, then, you know, reach out to some supports. We have our newly launched outreach van. And, you know, staff that is on the outreach van have been trained in knowing the signs and how to help people. So, and it's a white van with green lettering. It says people, you know, helping people. And that's what we do. One of the goals is to link people with services that they may be needing. So, you know, our team is small. We have Michael Moss and Kendra Boyce right now and Tom Yannick that are providing these services. And we are growing our team, but we wouldn't be able to do it without our community partners and our peer support centers. So I want to just thank you guys so much.
And don't forget to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, Carrie Manning, Lake County Behavioral Health Services, supervising behavioral specialist. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say something real briefly about that. Michael Moss, Lake County Behavioral Health Services. I'm a prevention specialist. Thank you, board. Thank you to the public that supports all of our efforts. We couldn't do it without you and the agencies that are involved as well. I just wanted to point out real quick on the subject of suicide. We have a meeting today with Middletown High School, and I've passed a couple of little flyers out to the board there. It's called a Directing Change Program, and what this does is introduces the information about suicide, about mental health awareness through art and film. So we have a meeting today with Middletown High School that will introduce this into their peer support program class. And what this will do is it'll promote a film contest. And there's prizes involved, there's things like that that will actually get the students involved in this. We're very excited about it because this is a national program, and they will be able to submit their films about suicide, about mental health, what they feel about it. They will cohort with another classroom, so we're looking forward to that, and we'll keep you abreast on what happens. Hopefully Middletown High School will come home with a victory and get that film nationally recognized. It'll be all over the place and displayed, so yeah, thank you. Just be aware.
Thank you. I think we have someone online as well. April Giambria, if you'd like to unmute and...
Hello. Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board. April Gambra, the County Behavioral Health Services. I didn't have an opportunity to be there today, but I really wanted to just say thank you to everybody who works both the department in the community and worldwide to really address the stigma around suicide prevention. And all of the work and effort that is being done is amazing. I couldn't be more proud of our small and mighty team. And so I just wanted to
Thank you. Any other comments, Supervisor Sabatier?
So I have a couple of comments quickly. Number one, this is an important thing. Outside of natural causes of death, this is our second leading cause of death. Mr. Moss, I want to get in touch with you. Let's see if we can make a quick advertisement for getting more videos on PEG TV. Let's use our community TV station to advertise that, and maybe if approved by those who create the videos, maybe we can play those videos on PEG TV as well. I think it's important to put out the message, and it's another way of supporting this proclamation outside of just verbalizing it during our meeting. It's committing to other outlets as well to help out with putting out the message. And then Director Metcalf, wondering if you can provide a number for people who are thinking of harming themselves or people who believe they have friends or family members or colleagues that are also feeling down and maybe possibly leading in that direction. Is there a specific number that they should be reaching out to? I don't know that I've heard that today, and I just want to make sure that we put it out there.
I would look to my, can you address that?
You can text 741-741. That is a texting line for suicide.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, we need to get the microphone.
Kimberly Guerra, Redwood Community Services. You can text 741-741 to get on-demand support if you're experiencing suicidal ideation or you're just really struggling with mental health.
And then I would like to also, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Carrie Manning, Lake County Behavioral Health again. So our local crisis number is 1-800-900-2075.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have been watching first before I opened my mouth. A veteran crisis line as well. A lot of veterans have the same, have a lot of issues with that. And so there's a dial 988, then press 1. There's a chat online for veteran crisis line, and then text 838-255. And I think the videos are very important. I know that Tribal Health conducts digital storytelling, which helps with people to tell their story about their life. and it might be good to collaborate. And then I know that they have a veterans video source as well. I did one back in like 2008, and so veterans go on and tell their story of their deployment, their upbringing. It's a real healing, mechanism as well. So, yeah, just wanted to add that. Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
We'll have to stand on this one.
Oh, weird.
Okay.
Thanks for trying.
You need to get a ladder.
There we go. Okay, let me make sure I got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome.
I wonder if you put down the glasses like I do.
All right, everyone, thank you very much for everything you do. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I did open it up for public comment. I didn't see anyone in the chambers or online except for April. So I'll bring it back to the board and close this item out. Move on to our 908, a presentation of proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month in Lake County, California, and Supervisor Sabatier will be reading this proclamation.
Good morning, everybody. Today we want to recognize the vast contributions of our Latino community in not just Lake County, but across the state of California as well. There is a very deep, rich, and long history of that here. So I'll go ahead and start. Proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month in Lake County, California. And I'll pause. It's not really a specific month. I think it's September 15th to October 15th. So it spans between September and October. Whereas Lake County wishes to celebrate the accomplishments of Hispanic Americans who have helped shape our county. We are grateful for the many contributions Hispanic American men and women make to our communities and the vibrancy they weave into our local culture. And whereas Lake County believes that in diversity we are strengthened by our diverse beliefs, thoughts, cultures, and experiences. All Hispanic Americans who live in our county have and continue to enrich our classrooms, our neighborhoods, and our places of work. And whereas from America's earliest days, Hispanic Americans have played a prominent and important role in our national heritage, and Hispanic Americans continue to embody the pioneering spirit of America today, demonstrating a standfast commitment to faith, family, and hard work. Hispanic Americans lift up our communities and our economy as entrepreneurs, executives, and small business owners, and make contributions in areas such as science, art, music, politics, academia, government, and sports. And whereas Hispanic-owned small businesses are the fastest growing businesses in America, starting at a pace 15 times the national average over the last decade. Hispanic Americans own more than 3 million American businesses and serve with honor in all branches of the armed forces, continuing a strong legacy of dedication to our country. Hispanic Americans are a testament to the American promise that anyone can succeed in the United States through hard work. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lake County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims September 15th, 2022 through October 15th, 2022, there it is, as Hispanic Heritage Month in Lake County, passed and adopted this day of September 2022 and signed by our chair. Thank you. And I do want to add, this speaks very generally, but we are seeing this in our community. We are seeing more and more businesses coming from our Hispanic and Latino community, and I want to give some kudos. Everyone is making their best to look at equity and diversity and how is it that we can increase our inclusion. Want to give kudos to Kelseyville for always having a Cinco de Mayo celebration. It used to be in Lakeport before. They just had an Independence Day, and I know that those things are happening also in the city of Clear Lake, and we're seeing that change happening throughout our county. And that's because of the contributions that we are seeing from our Hispanic community and the recognition that we provide. Thank you. there anybody here that would like to receive this proclamation?
All right.
I work for the Center for Latinos.
Well, then there it is. It's
All
perfect.
right. Would you like to say anything?
Would you like to speak?
I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, I'm not really good at making speeches. I'm more of a talker that comes to the mind. But it is an honor to, just go closer. It is an honor to receive this proclamation, knowing that, Hispanics have played a big and huge role in this community. And me being here, I've barely been here, 2019. I've seen a lot of change, and I would love making those changes by working in the Center for the Latino Community. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's your name?
I thought you were here for the previous ones. I wasn't sure. Would you like to be in this picture?
Sure.
What's your name for the record?
My name is Ricardo Arturo Ramos, and I work for the Center for Latino Communities for the Behavioral Health Services.
Thank you so much.
All right. Any other comment from public input? I don't see any online, so I will go ahead and bring it back to the board and close this item. And move on to our 6.5, which is a presentation of the Lake County Pool and Recreation Center feasibility study, and this is presented by our Public Services Director, Lars Ewing, and so I will give the floor to you.
Hey, good morning, Board. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director, and I want to, before we get going, just make sure that we have on Zoom Brian Whitmore and Mike Shelato.
They're coming in.
There they are. There's Brian.
So while they're joining, I'll give just a brief introduction. So as the board may recall, over the last few years, Public Services worked with a group of representatives from the cities of Clear Lake, the city of Lakeport, both of whom have representatives here on the board today, as well as the Lakeport Unified School District and the County Office of Education, and to look at the possibility of a pool for both recreational and competitive swimming purposes, and possibly a recreation center or gym, to use a more common term, located somewhere in the county. All of those entities have participated financially to one extent or another to have a feasibility study completed. About a year ago, your board received an update on that. That was called the Phase 1 completion, and we are now at Phase 2. Which will wrap up the feasibility study. So we'll give a presentation here, and the consultant team will give that presentation. But I think it's important to note that at the completion of Phase 1, your board's direction was to look at additional locations around the unincorporated county. That'll be highlighted during the presentation here. And while it is, it's certainly not feasible to assess every single property in the entire county, the general approach to that was to ensure that the consideration was given to areas located outside of those incorporated cities. And so I will hand it over to Brian Whitmore, who is on. He was the architect that developed the facility program. Also presenting is Mike Shelato. Mike Shelato is a former Parks and Rec director and city manager with the city of Roseville. Nearly 30 years of service there, I believe, at Roseville. He provided significant assistance on the operations and organizational structure side of things. And as we go into the presentation and during the presentation, every presentation the board receives, every item that is here, there's a request for direction to staff, and I want to emphasize that here because the feasibility study is just that. It's a feasibility study to identify, is this feasible? There's no one answer to this. You'll hear recommendations from the consultant team of of what they recommend. I included my recommendations in the agenda, which we will also get to at the end. But I really am looking for direction from the board. Any thoughts that may extend beyond those recommendations, because this is. There's a lot of big numbers associated with this that will stand out in the presentation and should not come as a surprise when we're talking about big picture facilities that are not community based. They're regional, countywide, and even extending beyond that possibly. So with that framework, I'll hand it over to Brian. He'll lead you through the presentation, and Mike will comment as well.
Well, good morning. Brian Whitmore, President and CEO of Studio W Architects. Give me just a moment here to share my screen. And can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak here this morning. As Lars mentioned, we are going to be presenting the Phase 2 Recreation Aquatic Center feasibility study here today. I want to just jump into our agenda. We're going to start today by talking about some other project location opportunities that we studied in Phase 2. We initially identified a number of locations in Phase 1, but in Phase 2 we extended that through other areas of the county and have some thoughts and recommendations based on those sites that we analyzed. We also spent a bit of time with community outreach under Phase 2. We did conduct a community survey, which lasted approximately 2 months. We received roughly about 600 responses to that survey, and so we'll share results of that survey here that helped inform some of the recommendations that came out of Phase 2. Ultimately, the bulk of Phase 2 is really focusing on developing some conceptual design ideas for multiple sites, really for the purposes to identify further the project possibility of scope and program, but also the costs associated with constructing these facilities, the capital cost estimates, and then the ongoing operational cost estimates, which Mike Shellito was instrumental in putting together. And then we'll have some final recommendations at the end. So if we go back to Phase 1, you may recall that we studied a number of different sites. The first option there was the West Shore swimming pool location in Lakeport. This was the previous pool location that was operated by the school district at the high school site there in Lakeport. We looked at a second option, which was a privately run fitness center at Quail Run in the Lakeport region. The third option, also in Lakeport, was the West Side Community Park location, which is currently the regional park there. And then also the Clear Lake Burns Valley Park, which is a park that is currently being master planned for the purposes of a regional park there in the Clear Lake area. In addition to those locations, we studied 5 other locations, and we had identified some pros and cons in each case. The first option here was option 5. This is in Middletown. This is a location right there off of the highway, Highway 29. Some of the pros, as you can see here, associated with this is that it is very proximate to the Middletown High School and Middle School, so there's some possible joint use opportunity with either a recreation or aquatic center or both at this location. Obviously, high visibility on the main highway. Some of the cons that we identified were the fact that the county already operates a recreational pool in Middletown, and so there may be some competition, certainly by locating an aquatic center here, very proximate to the existing pool. It's currently not owned by any public entity, so there'd have to be some sort of acquiring of that property. And there's no apparent real adjacent community assets, that is, other nearby larger park types of uses, centers, or other kinds of things that we mentioned in Phase 1 have synergy with the development of recreation and aquatic centers in other locations. We also studied option number 6. This is an area off of Highway 20 identified there in Clear Lake Oaks. This, as we understand, is currently being considered for a regional park and part of a larger nature preserve. High visibility again on the highway there. I think some of the challenges with this site is, of course, it is currently an early process of donation, so there's probably very long-term ongoing process that needs to happen there in order to fully adopt and recognize that property is being owned publicly. There is currently no infrastructure to this site to support any sort of facility, so obviously you'd have to bring infrastructure to that, and that can be very costly when we're talking about sort of the first projects that start out the gate when it comes to trying to develop an area like this. Again, there's currently no adjacent community assets nearby, but certainly as this park would be master plan, would be developed, there could be a lot of synergy that happened at this location depending on what happens there. So while that is a bit of a con, it can be a pro later on as you move forward. We looked at an option number 7, a Hammond Park. This is currently a community park off of Highway 20. It has a little less visibility than some of the other comparable sites. This is a smaller site. It has less room to add recreation and aquatics amenities. The area to the west is primarily a wetlands area. The existing master plan may preclude those types of uses. I think you could certainly modify the master plan to include that, but I think the issue of size really becomes sort of a challenge. There's a little retail center there. There's some other amenities nearby. But certainly when we consider locations for this, we want them to perform well. And so we're looking for some of the other things that they can utilize and serve, other retail centers for things like food, night stays, other types of things potentially if you're looking to attract folks regionally to come to these centers. Option 8 was in Upper Lake. This is another current community park location. There are some potential synergies with the local high school, the casino, and the retail center nearby. There is an underutilized, as we understand, a softball field on this location that could be better utilized perhaps for other recreational and aquatics purposes. Again, a little less room to work on this site, and you'll see that when we get into some of the conceptual designs. There is, big requirement obviously for parking in addition to the sites themselves. And then adding, as we understand, there is the addition of a dog park and basketball court currently planned for this site that I think would probably take up what remaining room available that would be there. The last site we looked at was Kelseyville. The northern area of this site is relatively underutilized. Again, this is a smaller site. The ownership remains unknown. There was some questions about, the ownership of sort of the northern portion of the site there. Again, I think in order to develop some sort of aquatics and or recreation center here, you're really probably looking at trying to take up all of that property in order to do that. And so you're compromising some of the existing features of the park site as it exists now. So these were the other sites that we had additionally looked at in phase 2 in addition to our phase 1 research. In terms of recommendations, we came back to some of the early recommendations from phase 1, and that was really focusing on 2 locations, one in the Lakeport region and the other in the Clear Lake region. And the purposes for that was really the deciding factors there on the right-hand side. Again, we want these centers to do well. As you'll see, these are not inexpensive to construct and operate long-term, and so we want them to perform well. And by having them in locations where we have a lot of population, a lot of potential use, the fact that there's a lot of synergies happening with the other community park amenities that are either being planned or are already in place, the fact that you can share some amenities, things like parking, the co-location of things like libraries. The library, for example, in Clear Lake is immediately adjacent to the Burns Valley Park. Other centers, the schools, and potentially not, I'll say, cannibalizing the other pool location in Middletown seems to make a lot of sense. We really look for a lot of what we call those placemaking principles, other social activities, other things that happen, even access to the highways, easy access to other places for food, again, night stays. Those types of things are really important when we look at the location and the ultimate success of these kinds of projects. And so hence the reason we sort of came back to and further studied that Westside Community Park and the Burns Valley Park locations. As I mentioned before, we issued a survey. That survey had approximately 20 questions or so. We published that survey for, I think, around 60 days. We received just short of 600 responses to the survey, which we felt was very positive. Big thanks to the cities and to the county and to the County Office of Education for helping to push that survey out through their own media and social media avenues. I'll go through some of the results here at a high level. We had roughly 99% of the folks who participated were actual Lake County residents. As you can see here, 82% were age 35 or older, and 41% of those responding had some sort of households with youth, that is children or grandchildren of some kind that lived at that home. We wanted to gauge the current recreational use, and as you can see here, 83% of the people who responded do engage in some sort of recreational uses throughout the county. The parks, the aquatics, assuming that's probably the Middletown pool, hiking and walking and sports fields were the highest identified there. And we could go into more detail, but as you can see, 40% were really in the South Lake County area, 36% there in the city of Lakeport, and 18% in the city of Clear Lake. We asked questions specifically about recreational center priorities, and these were some of the things that were identified as either missing, desired, or most important. That included youth amenities, trails, paths, bike lanes, recreational center, bowling arcade, batting cage, mini golf, aquatics, gymnasium and fitness. Again, some of the desired amenities, you see some of the same things, fitness and aerobics, some sort of game room, gymnasium and training room. And most important, included fitness and aerobics, adult sports and athletics, community events, and classes. With respect to an aquatic center, as you can see here, we asked some specific questions. 77% preferred the idea of some sort of combined aquatics and recreation type of facility, and 70% preferred the idea of an indoor facility with the ability to use an indoor facility essentially 12 months out of the year. Some of the desired amenities included swim lessons, adult swimming, family fun, and outdoor activities, and some of the most important amenities, again, included public swim and swim lessons. When it came to locations, 51% preferred one of what we considered the main Lake County cities, that being Lakeport or Clear Lake, and 74% were willing to travel more than 30 minutes. So you can see here the location preferences, 28% Lakeport, 23% Clear Lake, and then so forth. 74%, as I said before, were willing to go 15 to 30 minutes, and 16%, 30 to 45 minutes to travel to either a rec center or aquatic center location. 95% said they were likely to visit. 58% said they were likely to visit weekly. Some of the visiting roadblocks could be location being too far, the cost being too expensive. Some of the priorities in construction were something that was safe and clean and sustainable. We asked the question about joint use and funding, and 86% said that they would like to support some sort of joint use. So that is some sort of sharing in the cost or sharing in the operation of this type of facility. And that they perhaps would consider tax measure, bond measure, impact fees, member fees, and so forth in that order in terms of how to fund a project of this kind. So in summary here, I think we did find there was overwhelming support that most people would frequent these sorts of facilities and travel up to 30 minutes at least to utilize these centers. A lot of the respondents noted that youth needed to be more of a consideration in these amenities, that to provide more access for the youth. The idea of a new aquatics facility was perhaps the most exciting. And while they were excited for the possibilities, again, they were concerned about location, cost, accessibility, and safety and security. So, as I mentioned before, when we focused on each of the sites, we started to develop some conceptual designs, and this was really more of a proving ground. We developed a program, a high-level program in phase one. We wanted to prove out that program to make sure that that was still relevant with some of the survey results that we received, and so we developed sort of a typical floor plan for a recreation center. This is approximately 15,000 square feet. It offers there in green a kind of a large gymnasium area with an 84 by 50 court, cross courts for basketball and for volleyball. There's a cardio and weights area. There's a game room area. There's an indoor sort of multi-use space that could be housed for classes, other types of events, pickleball, that sort of thing. And then a concessions and restrooms, or excuse me, a concessions area. Obviously, we have restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, and administrative areas and support areas along with that. We looked at the possibility of this idea of splitting up the facilities. There was a lot of sticker shock in phase one about a combined facility. The city of Clear Lake has really made a push towards this idea of locating a rec center at the Burns Valley Park location. And so we wanted to see, would that fit with some of the other amenities that they have planned? And so we put together a site plan that utilized the master plan that they currently have for Burns Valley that locates that center in the central area of that site, adjacent to the library and also adjacent to the major parking and a lot of the fields that they have planned. And again, we developed some exterior amenities, an outdoor area for special events, and a playground area as well, based on some of the survey results we received. And again, a lot of this was developed really as a concept to figure out the pricing associated with building a facility of this kind. Some renderings really to show materials, the idea that we could look at some pre-manufactured elements for some of the larger pieces there, but coming up with something for our professional cost estimators to estimate too. By comparison to the recreational center, we looked at an aquatic center design. This design features roughly about a 8,000 square foot facility with a pool deck area for 2 pools. This shows an 8-lane competitive pool. It's probably the, I'll say, worst case scenario in terms of cost, in terms of the size of the facility. You could look at a 6-lane, potentially even a 4-lane facility. But the less size that we make that, obviously, the less opportunity for competition. And we work with Aquatic Design Groups, who was another partner of ours, to try to identify and optimize the size that should be planned there. There's another small pool that would be more for learn to swim programs, younger youth type programs, a bleachers area, and obviously the pool deck there. We looked at the ability to build this facility as both an indoor or an outdoor facility. So in effect, you could build a structure over those pools and make that an indoor pool facility if you wanted to, but it could also be planned as an outdoor facility. The building includes administration, changing rooms, locker rooms, a party room or professional development type of space, and then an area for storage of equipment as well as the chemicals associated with the pool. We looked at, in this particular case, the idea that if Clear Lake is pursuing a recreation center, what about the idea of a potential aquatic center in Lakeport, with the idea that a rec center could be built there later on in the future? We looked at sort of the area there furthest west in the West Side Park location that seemed to have the most room to build a facility of this kind and have utilities already at the location. So we planned that along with the rest of the master plan for the West Side Park. This shows the aquatic center there on the right-hand side with the idea that a future recreational center could be planned there in the future. And some of the renderings, these renderings do show a pre-manufactured system that could cover the pool, but again, that could be phased in construction. The idea that the pool facility would feature solar hot water and other cost savings measures when it comes to operating that pool long-term, utilizing the roofs. And some further renderings of the aquatic center space. So when it came to the estimates, we took conceptual designs that we had, we shared those with a professional cost estimator. These are the high-level estimates that they provided. This includes a lot of contingency and some escalation. Certainly, we have no idea what the planned time frame is, and so it's hard to estimate escalation, but we know costs continue to go up in terms of construction. Up there at the top is the recreation center building at about 15,000 square feet, including its site and utilities. So it's about a $12.9 million project. If we look at the possibility of certainly building that with both Field Act compliance for the purposes of use by local school districts, but also with prevailing wages. Soft cost budgets, typically, these are all of the ancillary costs of design, permitting, and those sorts of things that go along with construction costs, roughly about 25%. So about a $16 million facility, potentially, when we look at something around 15,000 square feet, when it comes to this type of construction. By comparison, the aquatic center, we separated sort of that glass shell from the aquatics pool and building and its site and utilities. So it's about a $20.9 million facility enclosed and maybe closer to around $12.5 million facility as an outdoor facility plus soft costs at about 25%. I'm going to turn things over to Mike Shellito. As I mentioned before, the capital costs are one thing, but in order to maintain these facilities, there are costs that are ongoing. We talked a little bit about some of the optimized cost recovery that we would want to look at of these types of facilities, but Mike did a deep dive when it came to trying to figure out the cost to operate and obviously the revenue that these sorts of centers could generate. So Mike.
Thanks, Brian. In developing the operational cost estimates for the rec center, we looked at, and the pool, we looked at two existing facilities that have been operating for about 10 years. Both of them were based in Roseville, where back earlier in my career, I was involved with both planning and building those facilities. So the recreation center, we're looking at an operation budget for annual revenue around $250,000 to offset the operating cost. The center operating cost itself, salaries make up the bulk of that at $400,000, materials and supplies a little less than $200,000. So total annual operating costs, combined are around $585,000. If you separate that or you subtract the revenue that you get from classes, drop-in membership fees, both of these facilities are operated to maximize cost recovery. So from membership fees to classes to youth sport leagues, basketball, adult leagues, volleyball, rentals, the facility gets rented a lot. It's used for crab feeds, all of those kinds of things. So you can see a net operational subsidy. Annual visits to the current Roseville Sports Center is around 85,000 visitors a year. And so you sort of divide that, 340,000 is about $4 a visit. I would note that the current proposal that Brian just outlined for the rec center is 15,000 square feet. The Roseville Sports Center is around 26,000. So I think this is a worst case scenario in terms of operating costs, but I think these are really hard actual numbers. And so the next slide, I won't go into the detail, but this is the actual budget that currently is used to fund the operation of the existing facility. So I think this, again, it's a larger facility currently than being proposed, so you may see lower costs in terms of utilities as well as custodial, those kinds of things. But a lot of the costs are just the staffing that goes into front desk operation, leagues, programs, fitness programs, staffing that goes with those things. So this is the basis of the operating costs was the actual budget. Again, I would expect it to be lower because of a smaller facility, but I'd rather err on the high side than the low side. When we look at the pool costs, we looked at the current operating costs. Brian, can you move me forward one? There we go. We looked at the indoor pool costs of the indoor pool. We visited this pool in the latter part of May with a group from Lakeport, Clear Lake, and Lake County. So this is the current budget for that facility. So you can see it gets a lot of use from recreation swim, around 85,000 in revenue. Fitness passes and drop-in is a bulk of the revenue that offsets the operating cost with about 46,000 people visiting annually. Lesson program, they teach, there's 6,500 kids registered, 52,000 visits. Rentals, team use, community use, another 85,000, miscellaneous. So annual revenue at 675,000. Currently, the salaries include both full and part-time. And in developing the budget for the facility in Lakeport, Lake County, we looked at probably one full-time aquatic supervisor and a half-time maintenance person that would be a full-time employee. The rest of the salaries are temporary, part-time, hourly folks, lifeguards, swim instructors, cashiers, custodial help, materials and supplies, about $357,000. So total annual operating costs a little bit about $1 million. Again, as this is an 8-lane pool with a large teaching pool and water exercise pool. If you went to, let's say, a 6-lane pool that would still be appropriate for competitive swimming, these costs would certainly go down. The net operational subsidy is around $380,000 or cost recovery at 64%. In developing the revenue, we looked at pricing models that were competitive in the market in the region. So the pricing is intended to be, was included in a more detailed report that was provided to the jurisdictions. So the next slide is just the breakdown of the operating costs based on the current budget of the facility that you see in the picture in the lower half left, which is the pool that's currently being operated. Again, you can see the operational growth that's sort of indoor, outdoor. But again, not to go into all these details, but you can see the bulk of the costs really relates to staffing, and most of that staffing is temporary part-time. And then on the right side is the material and operating costs, including utilities. Lastly, we looked at, well, if you, let's say you built an outdoor pool, not a year-round, 12-month-a-year operation, but an outdoor pool, which is fairly typical in a lot of communities. And this pool would more often than not run from, let's say, Memorial Day to the start of school, which today becomes sort of mid-August in sort of the Lake County area. You can see the cost and revenue are significantly lower. So you have total revenue around $100,000 based on community use. A big portion of that would be swim team rent. A group like the Channel Cats might rent the pool during the recreational swim team season. This does not include use or rent offset by the Lakeport School District. So if they decided to restart a competitive swimming program, that would both add some revenue and rent revenue from the school district, as well as may include a little bit of additional operating costs for heat during the high school swim season. Salary costs around $350,000, so the net operational subsidy is around $250,000 a year. And again, this budget was drawn from one of the facilities we looked at in our tour, the Antelope High School Antelope Community Park Joint Use Facility that's run by the Sunrise Recreation Park District and the Roseville High School District. So again, these were sort of real numbers from very benchmark facilities. And with that, I turn it back to Brian to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, so we wanted to just go through some high-level recommendations and based on information we collected both in phase 1 and phase 2. If you recall, in phase 1, we had a number of different structures that we identified and used case studies when it came to how might the county and or the cities come together and operate facilities of these kinds. We presented the pros and cons of sort of joint use versus joint powers authority versus special district. And it seemed to us that Lake County, the city of Lakeport, and the city of Clear Lake, I think all have a vested interest in doing something. The joint use is challenging because one entity would have to really be the developer and then work to try to bring the others in as partners, either in operations or in other ways. And that works well when cities partner with, say, unified school districts, things of that nature. But because we saw this really as a joint development, it probably makes more sense to look at it from a joint powers authority standpoint. In other words, could be the county, the city of Lakeport, and the city of Clear Lake coming together. It could be multiple JPAs, say the city of Lakeport and Lake County, along with the school district in that region, and then likewise Clear Lake and Lake County and the school district in that region. If you were to look at either multiple facilities or differing facilities, as we suggested, rec center in one location, aquatic center in the other. We did consider the idea of a special district. Generally speaking, special districts do not operate just one or two facilities. They operate multitude of facilities. They generally exist in areas where currently counties and or cities don't operate their own parks and recreation facilities. And so if there was consideration for a special district, which certainly there could be, I think we would want to look at probably getting out of the business of parks and rec, say for the county and for the cities, and having those current parks or other facilities being maintained and operated by that special district. And we also recognize that that is not necessarily an easy task to put together a special district. There is a lot of effort there in order to put that together, make that into its own entity, and then depending on whether it's simply just focused on these facilities or absorbing other facilities within the county as part of Parks and Rec, that would take some time. When it comes to funding, we really didn't go through the process of trying to identify commitments either from the county or from the cities. There are a variety of commitments that have already been identified. Lakeport Unified, for example, has said they are willing to put forth $1.2 million in terms of their own funds from their bond measure towards something. We know the city of Clear Lake has some funds in place already and is looking at utilizing partnership funds with their local school district to move forward on the idea of a rec center. Potentially, the county and the cities and even the school districts all have some sort of funding they're willing to put forth. But if there isn't enough funds there to do that sort of thing, really the only option, or probably the most likely option, is some sort of bond measure. Recognizing that if even a special district or if the county and or the cities came together as a JPA, that's going to be a supermajority support, so 67% support, and that might be a challenge. School district can pass a bond with 55%, but as we've seen in the past, there have been some challenges about the commitment of whether or not the school district can pass another bond, the idea of supporting facilities that may be ultimately in partnership with either the county or the cities. And so that's something to consider. The ongoing costs, so all of the sort of maintenance and operations costs, that may be $250,000 to $350,000 per year, would have to be something that's likely going to be shared through a general fund subsidy. But again, if you come together with enough partners in a JPA, that general fund subsidy could be something that's divvied up 3 or 4 times. Phasing makes a lot of sense. We sort of looked at, again, the worst case scenario when it came to the design. It's not to say that you can't build something that's smaller or less costly when it comes to the type of amenities, a smaller pool, a smaller rec center. But the idea of phasing that construction, perhaps building an aquatic center that's not enclosed, but the ability to enclose it later makes a lot of sense. Building, say, maybe a small rec center where you can add on other amenities around the perimeter of a main space, a main gymnasium and locker room, an administration space, may make sense as well. So these are some of the high-level recommendations that we made. I'm sure you have some questions, and we'll be happy to answer your questions here this morning. So with that, I'll hand it back over.
Brian, thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to just add a few comments to wrap it up. First, thank you to the cities. 2 city managers are here in the chambers right now. Also, Office of Education, the consultant team, and also the number of elected officials that participated. So thank you for that. Similar presentations like this were given to the city of Clear Lake, the city of Lakeport over the last couple of weeks, and that's beneficial. And really having this culminating presentation to the board as where we are now. The recommendations that were put up by the consultant team, I'll contrast those with some of the recommendations that you'll see in my board memo, because there are some slight differences. And ultimately, it's I think from where are they looking at? Where are we each looking at this project? The consultant team is looking at it from the countywide. How can these projects get done? My recommendations are more coming from what specifically should the County of Lake, what are my recommendations from Public Services to the County Board of Supervisors as possibly carrying these projects forward in partnership with other entities. So while those recommendations that we're just presented now may look different. That's why, and I think it's important to note that. And so just jumping into those recommendations, the recommendations that I put forward were essentially, let's continue to investigate in a partnership fashion with the two cities based on the recommendations of the locations, that each of those two cities take the onus to lead those projects, and having the county partner with them in whatever fashion that might look like. And I use the term in the memo, joint powers agreement, different from a joint powers authority. And when we talk about the development, and I'll say development meaning, do we need this project? Maybe getting some polling done, additional polling above and beyond a feasibility level survey, some preliminary design. So does that merit a joint powers authority? I personally would argue no, but possibly something a little bit more than a handshake agreement between the entities. So moving ahead with some fashion on that end. Otherwise, I think the recommendations that I have are very self-explanatory, but I do want to highlight specifically for the pool, and I'm using the term pool. I recognize aquatic center is up there. I think we garbage workers are now sanitary engineers. An aquatic center is a pool. So, we used to have, just here in Lakeport, there used to be the school pool that was referenced there. There used to be a pool down in Library Park, right? So there's a history of just recreational pools. The competitive pool component of this really was part of the genesis of this project, really from Channel Cats driving it. So that's why we are looking at a larger size pool. But that polling that I referenced will really indicate what the need is in a little bit more solidified fashion than we've done now at a feasibility level. I don't want to take if you build it, they will come approach. Will they come if we build it? That's we want to look at it from that perspective. So with that said, an opportunity to turn it over to the board, and I welcome and encourage any questions and direction from the board. So thank you.
Anybody? Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the numbers. I do want to thank Mr. Whitmore and Mr. Shalito, hopefully I said the names correctly, for the field trip that we took when we came down to Citrus Heights and Roseville and that whole area to visit quite a different centers. I do want to say that a part of me, when I'm looking at the operational cost, I can't help but, I just looked it up, that there's a doubling of household income when we're looking at other facilities in that region that we went to visit versus here. Do we have that same amount of disposable income to be able to kind of meet where those numbers were for those other facilities? So that one I kind of take with a grain of salt, with hopes that we can slowly grow year by year with use, so it can become a little bit more sustainable and reach that same percentage possibly as we were seeing over there, because none of them were 100%, as was just suggested in the operational cost. They were all still needed some subsidizing to make it work. Love the idea of working together. We have 3 jurisdictions. We should be working together to make these things happen. This will have a very large impact on our youth, which I know that a survey is really hard to go after our youth, but having a survey where the majority of the people do not have kids and are older kind of skews maybe what our thoughts and purpose were for this, which was really aimed at youth. Also, the percentages that I saw that caught my interest was that 51% of the respondents were from the city of Clear Lake and the city of Lakeport, and 51% of the respondents wanted it to be in the city of Clear Lake or the city of Lakeport, which tells me potentially that none of the respondents outside of the city wanted it to be in the city of Clear Lake or the city of Lakeport. And what I'm hearing is our conversation is really circling around the projects for the city of Clear Lake and the city of Lakeport. I would love to hear about possibly maybe not a phase one for when we're looking at getting these things built and developed and moving forward, but maybe a phase two, or if it's possible to implement it in phase one. But what are we doing for the unincorporated area that obviously spoke out loud and clear that they would love to see it in the unincorporated area? I think having a regional draw is useful, both from an aquatic center to a rec center as well. But I want to make sure that there's equity built into what we're doing here, and that we're not forgetting to recognize that transportation still has not been resolved in our county where everyone can access everything. It's very limited for a lot of people. And so making sure that we make whatever we're going to develop be accessible to the majority amount of people, I think is going to be really important for me to feel good about moving forward. As far as how to move forward, how to get it funded and all that, I think there's a lot of good options. But I do know that I'm always kind of looking at the worst case scenario. Sorry, Fort Bragg, but where they had to pass a tax measure after the fact in order to keep their facility open. And I think that that is something that we just need to keep thinking about, that maybe we need to do that first rather than reactively realizing that it's not going to work and we can't maintain it. We need these things to stay open. We need these things to be well maintained, and they do come at a cost. And so I'm looking forward to what that's going to look like, but I think we need to work together on it. I do have some questions about the, and when I say around the lake, I'm not looking personally for swim meet competition all around the lake type of facilities. That would be weird. I think that having a singular one is good. Having other smaller, I love the Middletown pool. Been taking my kids there for the last 7, 8 years. Well, maybe not now that they're older, but was taking my kids down there. It's a perfect pool for just a family outing and enjoying to go take a dip, especially when it's hot. So that's the kind of things that I would like to see us looking at for other areas throughout the lake, and granted, wherever it fits and wherever it can work, and maybe getting a little bit more specific feedback from the community as to what their wants and needs are. But when it comes to the swim thing, again, in the survey, it wasn't, the swimming competition was not the highest of levels. And it's a huge price tag of what we're looking to build for something that wasn't at the top priority or top interest of the community. I think there's good reasons to do it. But my question is, right now, we just said this, that the school district is willing to give $1.2 million. I appreciate them doing that, as they had a chance to resolve some of their pool issues. So obviously, them participating in this, I think, is a huge, it's a huge thing. It's appreciated that that's what they're willing to do. What happens with the old pool, the old high school pool? And what about Quail Run? Is that a pool that is currently open and available to the public at this moment? So I guess my question is, what is going on with West Side Pool? Is that the one that used to be
West Shore.
West Shore Pool? Yep. Quail Run was on the list. Is that a pool that is open and available right now, or is it kind of like a gym membership type of thing? And just kind of wondering where that 1.2 million, because 26 million is a lot, and even if you take off the roof, it's still a lot. I want to make sure that we can achieve our goals and make sure that there is an opportunity for our swim teams to have access, but does it require us to carry that hefty price tag versus maybe resolving current issues with current pools that are available to us?
Okay. Well, if I can respond to well, the parts that I can respond to. The Quail Run, a privately owned facility that was operated on both a membership and a drop-in basis, and it's my understanding that now they operate on a membership only. There are no drop-ins, so that's a significant difference to the public at large on any daily, any given day. You know, there's not that ability there. The West Shore Pool, while the county's not involved with that at this point, and hasn't been for quite some time. So I think I'll have to defer to the city of Lakeport and the Lakeport Unified School District. It has been, if I'm hearing him walking up, that's great. So I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Kevin, if you can answer that, thank you.
Yes, Kevin Ingram, City Manager at the City of Lakeport. Good morning, honorable board members. Just in regards to the West Shore pool, in working with the school district there's a number of issues in regards to the physical condition of the pool. Essentially, it doesn't hold water. There's a major leak below the surface. That combined with getting the facility to meet ADA standards and the state architect DSA standards, really at this point it would be more cost effective to build an entire new facility than it would be to rehab that existing facility, which is an unfortunate, that was a very disappointing answer for all parties involved in that piece, and I think that's kind of what was taken into account. So if we're looking at this study in particular, the good news is it gives us options. That site is challenging for access to begin with, that if we can look at different sites, but unfortunately, rehabbing that facility, it would be more cost effective to construct a new one.
And Supervisor Sabatier, just to follow up a little bit on the cost, certainly when we talk about the pool, or really the way it was presented, the aquatic center, a full 8-lane and the secondary wading pool and all the other amenities that are there. It's presented in a way that it could be phased, number one, so we do have that opportunity. But we also have a chance at this point. We haven't even started engineering, so now is a good time to value engineer out and economize and scale a project. What truly is the community need? We're basing this largely off a desire to provide a competitive swimming pool, but when we do some more significant polling, then maybe that isn't identified as a need. Or can we provide that in a training capacity while not providing the location to try to draw in from all of Northern California hosting swim meets, right? What is the need that we can attempt to meet? So those the numbers that were up there, certainly we could have provide an opportunity to economize a bit. Thank you.
Supervisor Pyska?
I think there's a clear need for this aquatic center, for both centers. Looking at our health metrics, we have to go up, and this is one way to get a lot of our community members engaged in physical activity and addressing some, whole healthcare habits. We have a population that may not be able to afford daily passes or memberships, and so how do we make sure that we can accommodate a larger sector of our community to make sure that everyone or a lot of people can use these facilities and not have that membership be a barrier?
Well, if Mike Shelato has an opportunity to comment, I'm going to welcome his input here, because it's my understanding that most rec centers and pools publicly operated are not 100% self-funded. There is a subsidy that comes in generally, and any level of desire to keep rates down certainly could come from that increased subsidy. So that's the thing that comes to mind just for my mind. But with Mike, your background, I'd welcome any comments you have. Oh, Mike, you're on mute.
I think that's a good question. Brian, if you could stop sharing your screen, I'm looking at everybody in a little teeny window. And connect with who's who. I think the model of both public recreation centers and public pools, it's very rare that a recreation center or a pool operates at 100% cost recovery. But I do think there are opportunities. So even though the demographics or the median income may be different from community to community, I think whoever the operator is needs to make accommodations for people that have difficulty in affording things. And so in a couple of examples of those things, a number of cities do scholarship programs. Roseville has this thing called Operation Swim that has sponsorships for several hundred kids a year to get free swimming lessons, things like that. as well as reduced rates for people that have some income challenges. And so those are sort of public policy issues. Both of these facilities are not solely membership based. Some of those things are daily fee. If you want to drop in, let's say, and use the fitness equipment at the rec center, or a daily fee to use a pool. I think the pricing model that we looked at around $5, but depending on the jurisdiction, you could certainly develop both scholarships or reduced rate policies for lower income families. That's a very typical thing that I think I would suggest that people do, because those are ways that you can manage that. So I think there's ways to make it more affordable for those who have income challenges, as well as community programs that sponsor things. But again, part of this is to try to design for as best you can, maximize cost recovery without eliminating participation.
Mike, thank you. One other piece to that too is in Middletown. I think it's an opportunity right now to thank Hardisters.
Yes.
The daily rate there is $2, and Hardisters offers a discount. Buy it there at their store, and for the kids, and it's $1.25. And that difference is entirely paid by Hardisters. So essentially, local businesses can also be a partnership here.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up too. So I swim almost every day in the summer. My family does. We go to 3 different pools. This is a critical need that I understand. And going to the competition swimming, we have our Channel Cats program, which has been around for over 50 years, I think. And they don't have a place to swim, and there's no way to keep that program going if there's no pool for them to be in. And right now they're using a really old pool that is really cold, and swimming at 8 o'clock at night in the summer, in the end of the summer, that starts to get cold and dark. So if we want to keep programs like that going and keep our youth engaged in swimming and competitive swimming, we have to have the facility. But it's not just kids that swim laps. The pool that I'm a member of, I can see it across the street from me. Maybe not this morning, but even into October, there are people that come every morning at 8 o'clock, do their laps, do their water aerobics, and through the afternoon. So it's not just the youth, but I'm wondering if the timing of the survey has something to do with it, because at the time of the survey, I think the Channel Cats was using Quail Run, and they're not allowed to use Quail Run anymore. They're not. That's not an option. So that's really unfortunate, but that may have led to some of the, maybe the polling results would be different now just because of that. I am concerned about the sustainability of the program, and I think looking at the bond measure and looking how this is going to be community supported before we start making really big commitments, because I don't want to be in the place that Fort Bragg was in. And I'm so sorry. Without having that long-term sustainability plan locked in, or at least a lot more solidified, I'd be hesitant to start throwing money at this. But I know these numbers are big, but I think they're important, and I think we should move forward and continue with the investigation. As far as the outdoor pool goes, I think we can have 3 seasons rather than just 1 season. I think we can open in April and close in October, November. We do have that warm weather, particularly in Clear Lake and Lakeport, to have 3 seasons. And I think that will work better with the school district, and I think we'll have a lot more community people using the pool in those times. It's not just about kids and families in summer vacation. So phasing with the roof is a great idea. With the roof, I think in the wintertime, we would have more senior activities there, and mommy and me programs and daddy and me programs. And I think we would see a lot of use in the wintertime, but it's something that we could definitely phase into. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for those. Supervisor Simon, do you have anything? Or?
Yeah, supportive of the concept and the projects as we're talking about it. As Supervisor Peiska talked about, changing the health matrix in Lake County is something we're all looking to do. I see the great work that, obviously, both cities are doing with the improvement of parks, recreation areas, also the community development stuff that's happening down in Burns Valley. I think it all ties together of us really taking that next generation of, healthy living in Lake County. So, in support, but understanding the costs as we move forward is really the challenge right now, because great concept, but understanding how we're going to subsidize it and help it move forward, because it's already been stated clearly that it can't stand alone on its own. And that makes it the real challenge for us up here. Great community idea, but how do we work through that? Obviously, Joint Powers Authority, I can just speak that it is a challenge to get set up, but once it gets going and you get everybody's buy-in, it can work. The Lake County Risk Reduction Authority being a part of that. We're still developing it, but it does take time. But that conversation is happening, funding, how we do that. So we're kind of experiencing that right now. I would appreciate that conversation to be a little bit more on the bond measure, or how we make sure that it's funded, because as all agencies do, they're going to either be looking to the county or the cities to pick this stuff up out of the general fund. Has already been talked about, and we already know the challenges that we have with that. Having it all year round, if we're going to build something, needs to be the main focus from my point of view. Can't start out with just 2 seasons or 3 seasons. It would need to be all year round, so we could maximize any type of profits, or from that standpoint. Can't have an on-season, off-season. It would need to be all year round. It's in some of the conversations we're having. I appreciate the way we went around the entire county and looked at it in the unincorporated areas. I know we're not looking for a decision today, but one of the things that always comes to this board is the North Shore and the communities up that way, and having a community event or opportunity in that area to really help focus on our older demographics and, lower income folks in that area. So myself, I like the North Shore idea, because now we are, as we've always sat here and talked about, bringing some new lifeblood to that area that's in a different manner. I know we've talked about economic development in certain ways, but I think this community development opportunity is another way to do it. Folks traveling from all around the county to the North Shore, through Highway 20 and other things, to understand that, that community and how it exists here in Lake County and the uniqueness of it. So, those are my thoughts, and I know you weren't asking for an area, but it just seems like it has some good synergy there in, what's the name of the park? Is it?
The Upper Lake, or the?
Yeah, the Upper Lake Park, right by Running Creek there. Is that Hammond?
It's Upper Lake Park, Upper Lake Community Park.
Okay. And it's right off the highway. Those are my thoughts at this point.
I don't know if you were reading my mind, but go ahead, Supervisor Simon.
One final comment too. I think, potentially another jurisdiction or opportunity we could reach out to would be, as we're doing it, tribal health. Tribal Health is, obviously built a new facility in South Lake County, which is beautiful. We're glad to have that opportunity, but I think from the tribal communities also, Tribal Health might be another organization that we at least approach. Look at this idea as we're looking at, the complete health of all residents in Lake County. Could be an opportunity down the road too.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Not to mention that Tribal Health does serve greater than just the tribal community. Yep. They serve the full county. So I'm glad that you said that. I did appreciate in the presentation how they stated that that softball field is somewhat underutilized. And I know that now with the Nice field, that's a little more up to date. So, of course, I know that we talked also yesterday about some ideas on that, like in regards to special districts or something like that, special district or something like that. So yeah, I do appreciate the statement that we really do need to focus on having this planned rather than the Fort Bragg situation. So I'm on the same page there. And so a joint powers authority is, like Moke said, it works. And I'm in favor of that as well. So
Well, what I'm generally hearing, and to add to the opportunities to continue, for staff to continue working with not only the two cities, but any other agencies that might be interested. And I think it can be done under the just about to start countywide Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan. So that's going to be about a year-and-a-half effort, a year-and-a-half long effort, and we have an opportunity there during some very significant community outreach events to include this concept in that plan. That, the intent there is to have a master plan for our countywide facilities, and this both existing and potentially future facilities. So what I would suggest is that staff through Public Services continue to partner with with the City of Lakeport and the City of Clear Lake. I'll just say in a loose fashion at this point until we need to get to a point where we need some more heavy-hitting action. But through that master plan, the Countywide Parks, Recs, and Trails Master Plan, that's what I would recommend to the board, is that we include the continuation of this through that effort.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I will just make kind of an opposite statement. The price tag, I'm not worried about. I think that that's actually a motivation to go out there and find the funding. Knowing what we want is number one. And then number two, there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's not like we're going to lose services so we can go ahead and develop this. No, we're going to work so that we can find the funding that's available, and it's going to be possible to make it happen, which is why, and I'm in complete agreement with Supervisor Simon, making sure, again, the equity of where is the access to these types of facilities, that adds to the price tag, and I'm not even worried about that either. I think that we can make these things happen. People want to have access to these things. It's an attraction for people who want to move here to look to see if those facilities are available. I think there's more benefits than there is cons. In fact, I don't see any cons other than the fact that the price tag can look scary, but we can make that happen. And I think that we should make it happen.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I think finding the money to build the facility is not the problem. It's just the sustainability of how we keep the operations going.
Right. And that's why I mentioned the equity piece, because I think it will be probably coming up to a vote to say, hey, do you want to support this in order to continue it? And if we don't have equity, then a lot of people are going to say, well, what do I get out of this? And I think that makes it a lot easier to sell if we are offering to more people than just specifically to the two cities.
Okay. And on the equity piece here, are we talking geographic?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. All right. Yeah. And of course, with the idea of keeping the price as low as we can to make it accessible, but it's not possible to offer something like that for free.
Ms. Grant, did you have something?
The only thing I would like to do is just make a recommendation. If you're looking at a joint powers authority, as Supervisor Simon knows full well with the RRA, that's a lengthy process. And in the meantime, there's going to have to be a member of that joint powers authority who's going to be having to generally staff it, keep track of things, the reports, audits, etc. So as you're having those discussions, I very much recommend that you factor that in so that there's some equity among the members as to who has the maybe shared laboring oar for all of that.
Thank you for that. Supervisor Simon,
Yeah, great points, Anita. Like I said, here at the county level, I've had a little bit of experience both with, obviously, the JPA for the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority, but also we're a part of a JPA called the Workforce Alliance of North Bay that went through the transition, just as Anita was talking about, that went from supportive, Napa was the main supportive county with the administrative costs and covering those, but we did do a separation just 2 years ago and brought on our own, employees, executive director, Mr. Bruce Wilson, and other things. So there's a big transition, a lot of work that needs to go into that. So I think the conversations are moving in the right direction. When we talk about equity in inclusion as we're doing this. I do see this as a great opportunity in Lake County's time now as far as the recreation center and the aquatic center or the pool. As we move through that, to be a unique opportunity. You know, we talk about transportation and other things. We're preparing to build a beautiful transit hub down in Clear Lake, but through LTA and APC, I think there could be opportunities there to look at our low income, to get people to this property. We have the blue zones going on in Lake County. We have all those conversations about how do we gather folks, seniors and others in a certain area, and I think this continues that conversation because we know that isolation of our elders and our seniors is very concerning. And we currently have the senior centers, and I know we work hard through LTA to make sure that a lot of the places that things are hit, certain trips are tried to get people out to be in community and to be together. So I think this does continue that conversation. That's why I think it's very important that we do continue to go down this road to look at that opportunity, because as we all know, like I said, getting folks out of the house, getting into the community, finding a place that they can go and just, you know, be together for a while to get that human contact is very important. So, you know, that's why I'm in support of this. I think it is good, always thinking of the youth, but also of our elders, you know, being isolated. That's a real challenge.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you.
So what I'll do is I'll open it up to public comment. I'm going to start with Zoom because I see, since we're speaking of the youth, the Clear Lake High School students has their hands up. If you'd like to mute and state your name for the record, whoever's speaking, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Can you guys hear us? We don't know how to turn the camera on.
Okay, well, either way, if you just want to speak, that's fine, and
Okay.
all right.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Grace Gomez. I am here with Emma Hawk and Nancy Rizika. We are students from Clear Lake High and a part of the All Children Thrive organization. We are really hoping to gain a safe place, such as a rec center, and we hope to be given the opportunity to support this project. We really hope you take into consideration the positive outcomes that will result from the recreation center, while also taking in the agreeable input from Mr. Sabatier. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today.
That's what we got.
Thank you very much. All right. Any more hands in Zoom? I don't see any. So what I'll do is open it up in the chambers, and it looks like we have someone. If you can come to the microphone and state your name for the record, then we'll start your 3 minutes. And if you're asking a series of questions, can we just go through them first and then we'll answer them afterwards?
Joan Moss. I am a lifeguard. I've guarded at a couple lake pools up on Cobb. I lifeguarded in Lakeport. I lifeguarded almost everywhere locally. I want to ask, I appreciate Lars. I've lifeguarded for Lake County at the pool there. I want to ask the committee if they've considered Canocti Harbor Inn. I worked there a few years. There's 2 big pools, at least 1 baby pool, and there's facilities that serve meals. And I want to know if anybody considered Canocti Harbor Inn. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
It's a private resort, Joan, so it wouldn't function for the public.
Have to buy it.
Lars, you concur with that? Yeah.
Absolutely. I would second what Supervisor Pyska indicated. It was not included in the feasibility study and analysis of other areas, and I think as I indicated in my introductory remarks, you know, it's nearly impossible to look at every single parcel in the county and the possibilities there. It was more about, for a little bit more clarity, I did reach out to each of the supervisors to look at areas in their district that might make sense. This goes back probably a year now, but we did look at areas that would seemingly make sense. But no, to pointedly answer the question, no, the Canocti Harbor was not looked at.
All right. And so, Joan, did you hear that it's a privately owned facility, and very similar to the Quail Run situation where they have the preference to serve if so and if not. So we'll leave it at that. Is there any other public comment?
Good morning, Chair Crandall, board members, Alan Flores, City Manager, City of Clear Lake. Just want to thank the board for voicing your support for these projects. We believe that, this is something that our community really desperately needs. Not only we talk about physical health, which is a huge issue, but I think some of the behavioral health issues in our community, I would argue that these type of facilities will impact crime rates countywide. The quality of education, this was something that the project at Burns Valley, we started out planning on developing just a sports complex there, and it was really in our discussions with the school district and Canoctown Unified Superintendent really pushing us that we have a desperate need for after-school programs and things for kids to do after school in a safe environment, as you heard earlier from Clear Lake High School students that pushed us towards looking at additionally developing a recreation center at the site that we have at Burns Valley. So just want to say appreciate your continued support. We look forward to working with you. We started down a path a little bit ahead of when this initiative started, and so over the last year we have put together $8 million of funding for the sports complex portion of our project. The city's already invested a little over $3.5 million in the site thus far. So we're excited about continuing that, and we're looking at the rec center piece kind of being hopefully a second phase of that, and we'll be starting to put together some funding on that. So appreciate your comments, your support, and hopefully if I could be so bold, maybe this is something you could think about over the next couple of days with the unprecedented general fund balance that you'll be talking about. So.
Thank you. And so, yep, it looks like we have.
Everything's frozen. I'm not sure what's happening. They're not frozen.
So do you want to take a quick break?
They're moving.
I think Mike and Brian were just not moving. But.
Oh, we're moving, right? Yeah, I see my hand. Yeah,
they're moving.
It's just those cameras. Oh, there they are. There they go. Okay. Kevin, I see you coming up. Come on up.
Kevin Ingram again, City of Lakeport, City Manager. I think what's been said by all members of your board staff today, I mean, I think, echoed by our city council that, the price tag itself may, seem a little daunting at its first glance, but I think there's overwhelmingly a desire in the community and a direction given to us to continue to keep moving this forward. And I think the best mechanism for that is continuing the partnership, the conversations. I know Lars has his master plan process. I think that's a wonderful opportunity to continue the conversation. I hear exactly what Anita is saying, that, the JPA comes with quite a bit of, extra bureaucracy per se, and maybe that is a direction that we need to go some point in the future. But I think, even something as informal as an ad hoc, something a little bit greater than just a handshake agreement, I think, which was brought up before, but to continue this on the path to do exactly what it said. I too share the same sentiment. Not that finding up to $40 million is an easy task, but I do believe that is something that is easier than the sustainability in the long run. I don't think we want to follow the footpaths that Fort Bragg did. They recovered well. It's a fine facility that continues to operate, but we have an opportunity to learn from those mistakes. But at the same time, we hear quite a bit. We heard from the Clear Lake High School Youth Council group, who have been very active in participating with our city council and drilling in over and over again that the desire and the need for greater youth activities in our community is a huge need. And this is by far always rises to the top of that list. So I think we definitely have our charge to continue this partnership. The City of Lakeport is definitely wanting to be on that. We can certainly dedicate staff and council members to that continued discussion. So I think whatever format that discussion tends to be, I think there's clear direction given to me and my staff to continue that partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'll close public input. bring it back to the board. Do you have the direction, or is there anything you're unclear of, Lars?
No, I feel like I have enough direction for staff to continue to work on this in whatever fashion we may be able to, and my recommendation would be to have that go through that master plan process, which the board will be receiving in the next couple of months, an introductory presentation, and so that'll be a timely presentation there.
All right. Ms. Grant, do you think? Okay. All right, well, looks like we have the direction, and we'll go ahead and close this item. We will take a short break and then come back at 10:55. I know we're a little behind, and we got to do the presentation for the next item, but bear with us here, and we'll move forward from there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everything froze.
It'd be everywhere, just spot right here. Did we run out of money, or are we still? We're still doing it.
Oh, no worries.
I have no problem.
Don't think about it, I'll let you know.
Good work, man. All right, you guys are trying.
It's true.
Oh.
Okay. 52? That's me. Yeah, text me when it's getting in there, I can make sure I can find it.
Yeah.
Not quite as big as Colorado.
There's an Anita Lake.
I'd love to.
Go and you. East, west, and east. Are there ones?
Don't you have a laptop? Yeah. Well, then bring it down.
So, Sam, for your awareness, I am now hearing some audio from the board chambers.
Okay, this is all I have.
I'm going to mute the board chambers feed now, and we'll conduct a test as soon as you're ready.
So I'll check it out. I have another line, but I don't have Adobe. I don't have Adobe. I didn't want to see you. I couldn't remember. Well, she already got it, so I'm not saying anything. She was a little shell-shocked when she came up. She's from LA. Carlos is really great.
All right, well, I appreciate that. You're going to let me use your stuff. So that I don't have to like, and then I said, well, I just do the whole transcript. Or just call in via Zoom.
Okay, they're ready? Oh. All right, it looks like we got the microphone on, and we'll go ahead and move on to our next item on the agenda. 6.6, presentation of certificates to the participants of the CSAC William Bill Chiat Institute, or Chiat Institute for Excellence in County Government. And with that, we have Graham Naus and Chastity Benson from CSAC here to present these awards. And with further ado, I'll give the floor to you.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Crandall and members of the board. It's terrific to be with you all. And before I dive in, I do want to celebrate the youth who shared their voice on the last item. That certainly highlights the great promise of future Lake County leadership. So love to see that engagement in the process. As you indicated, Mr. Chair, I'm Graham Naus. I'm the Executive Director of the California State Association of Counties. And I'm pleased to be joined with Chastity Benson, who's our Director of Operations and Foundational Programs, or Educational Programs for our California Counties Foundation, which means she makes the Institute work. And today we get to recognize the individuals who have earned their county executive credentials over the course of this summer. Our CSAC Institute has been educating county elected officials and staff now for 14 years, and it's never been stronger. And in fact, it is the premier county leadership and policy development institute in the country. And so we've been particularly thrilled to have a satellite campus in the Mendocino Lake area for some time. The numbers of county elected officials and executive staff who have taken courses and received their credentials continues to grow. And in fact, we have now exceeded 2,000 county officials and senior staff that have earned their credentials, which requires completing more than 60 hours of coursework. So a pretty impressive feat for training the great talent that you and other counties have in your organizations. I want to take just a very brief minute just to look at the true value of the CSAC Institute and specifically the value it is providing to California counties. In this time where we recognize the complexity of counties and this great intertwined relationship, this complex relationship with the state, with the responsibility that comes from the state to counties, the limited authority and flexibility that you have in order to carry out services, that challenge becomes ever more difficult when workforce changes occur. And when folks like Carol Hutchinson, who retired as your county administrative officer just a number of months ago, much like her, we're losing institutional knowledge. It's true in every county in California. It's true in the private sector and in the public sector. And it really underscores the great importance of the Institute to hold on to that knowledge and be a body of research in terms of holding on to that knowledge and also ensuring that there's some continuity as we move from generations from one leader to the next. Chastity, as I mentioned, is the powerhouse behind the CSAC Institute. She makes the engine run and connects directly with so many county leaders across the state. And so I'm going to ask Chastity to share a little bit about the Institute and Lake County and the specific individuals that we will be celebrating this morning. Chastity.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. As Graham mentioned, the CSAC Institute significantly helps the knowledge transfer process by providing critical background and perspective on a variety of county issues and programs. Participants have the opportunity to learn about leadership competencies, workforce development, negotiations, presentation skills, coalition building, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, and a host of other topics as they navigate their leadership path. Combine that with the context, background, and perspective the Institute provides on issues unique to California counties. It's safe to say that Graham is right. We have become one of the premier, if not the premier, continuing education program for county officials in the country. If you haven't participated in the CSAC Institute, I urge you to consider taking a course and pursue your credential. You will be joined by several dozen other Lake County family members who have completed their executive credential, including Chair Crandall. Speaking of credentials, we are pleased to be here today to honor 8 members of the Lake County family who recently earned their executive credential. On behalf of the California Counties Foundation, CSAC, our 58 counties, we thank you for your commitment to public service. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Crandall to present the awards.
Thank you for that, and I can attest that the course is, of course, the new supervisors course, as always, we've all been a part of that, and taking a deeper dive really does help understand a lot more about county government and work with other colleagues with an in-depth dive as well. I took full advantage of the new method of Zoom during COVID to conduct that, so that's where that came from. I've heard that before. Supervisors had to drive everywhere in the state to take these classes, so I got lucky. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start, and we're going to call, first and foremost, Rachel Dillman. And is she here, or is she online?
I'm right
Oh,
there.
there she is, right there. So we have your certificate, and it's framed in this nice frame for you. And when you're ready to get it, we'll have it ready for you. All right. Lisa Faraco, and we see you're online as well.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Genevieve Harrington. Oh, there she is. She's online as well. Congratulations. George Scott Horning. All right. Come on up. Yeah.
It was a really good experience. The classes are great, and I think they help prepare you for supervising and being in a management position. All right, thank you much.
Lourdes Pantaleon. There you go. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, it was a really great experience, so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Before, I wanted to make sure, Genevieve, did you have any comments to make if you'd like to unmute? No?
Thank you for the opportunity. It was definitely a great class.
Lisa, what about you? Would you have anything to add?
Same. I just feel very fortunate to have been able to participate in this opportunity, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
And Rachel, if you would have anything to add, go ahead.
I would just say ditto. I really did enjoy the classes. I think I got something out of it. So it's time and money well invested. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for not starting out that way, but I realized we were going with that. So, Stephen Phillips.
I'd like to say that along with what I learned about myself, I also got to network with a bunch of people that work for the county, Lake County and Mendocino County, that now I consider friends.
Thank you, Stephen. Pam Samick.
It was a great opportunity, great classes. Look forward to hosting more, and it was great having it in Ukiah.
Thank you, Pam. Teresa Schoen, and I see you're online. Congratulations. Is there anything you would like to say?
Thank you to the county. I appreciate this. Was wonderful training. The curriculum was great. The educators were fabulous.
All right, thank you. And is that okay? That's everybody. So we'll give one more round of applause to everyone. Thank you very much. Good work, and we're very proud of you to conduct this extra work, to invest into yourself, and that's very important. It gives you the opportunity to again, I think I like what was mentioned about learning more about ourselves. At times, it's part of it, so networking with a lot of other counties, when we see that they're dealing with the same struggles we are, we're able to relate and, apply it where it needs to go. So, all right, I don't have anything else. I don't know if anyone from the board or anyone from the public would like to say anything. Supervisor Sabatier?
I just want to say congratulations for all of you for taking the time out to continue your education and your knowledge and your skill sets for serving Lake County. I know all of you that have received this. I've already seen you in a role of leadership, and knowing that you've gone through this program only gives me more hope as to where we're going in the future. Chastity, you are in every single workshop, institute, program that I've ever been involved in. You are the glue, as far as I'm concerned, for CSAC, for ensuring that we continue to further ourselves and push ourselves even more. So thank you. I'm sure Graham knows that better than anyone else. But I appreciate what CSAC has to offer for the counties to make sure that we're well aware of what's going on outside of just the scope of the work that we do here. Sometimes we kind of have our blinders on with the work that's in front of us, and you guys help us to see the rest and push forward. So thank you, and congratulations.
For picture.
Oh, I guess we need to get a big picture here.
If you received an award and you're in this chamber, you're going to have to come up for the picture.
We need to do a picture, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to ditto what you said with Chastity. I just seen her at RCRC as well, so yeah.
She's everywhere.
Yeah.
Over here, and that way we can get the people where they're on Zoom.
Oh, there we go.
Make sure you get centered so you get Genevieve.
Get in there.
I'll tell you if I don't want you in
All right, and thank you, Graham. I don't know if you had any concluding comments.
I would just say thank you to your board for your investment in this and for the partnership to bring an Institute satellite campus up to the Mendocino Lake area. It was not an easy feat to pull off for anyone involved, but absolutely a good use of our resources and hopefully yours as well to provide that leadership opportunity. And your community should know that this leadership development is about providing a higher level of services in the community. It's about understanding how to best support you and your board and to deliver the most exceptional services possible within the resource constraints that you are faced with in Lake County. And so we're thrilled to have that partnership.
Thank you, Graham. Chastity, did you have anything else to add?
No, just thank you for your partnership and for your investment into the CSAC Institute. Appreciate all of you.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you both very much for being a part of this. And with that, I did open to the public. Yes, and so I'll go ahead and bring it back to the board, close this item, and we'll move on to the next item of the agenda. Okay, I thought I did too. So I'll open it up to the public briefly. Is there anyone that would like to come up to the microphone and make a statement about this item on the agenda? Okay, I'll look on Zoom. I don't see any hands up, so I will bring it back to the board and we will close this item. Thank you and congratulations everyone for your hard work. All right. With that, we will move on to our 6.7, consideration of presentation of energy conservation recommendations for county facilities, and B, consideration of presentation of facilities condition assessments for county facilities. With that, we will introduce Lars Ewing, our Public Services Director, who is back to present on this.
Well, good morning, Board. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. There are actually two separate topics with this agenda. It shows obviously with the A and the B, and while they were both pursued separately over the last year and then some, the culminating reports are done at about the same time. They're both county facility based, and there is some correlation between the two. So I thought it would be beneficial to kind of view them in one sitting. So the two topics are energy conservation and building condition. The A is energy conservation measures, which we will take up first. In July of 2021, your board selected Train Energy Services as an ESCO, an energy services company, to look at potential building energy improvements. Doug Walker is on with Train, and I'll hand it over to him here very shortly. But the agreement that the county entered into with Train was a zero-cost agreement, and the way an ESCO works at a high level is essentially they come in, they try to find any potential building improvements that would result in cost savings on an energy basis, and that would obviously save the county money, and their profit would be generated largely from those cost savings. So Train came through, did a very thorough analysis of majority of county buildings, and they did complete what's called a preliminary investment grade energy audit, which was included in your board's packet. So I'll hand it over to Doug. He does not have a presentation. I think it's going to be kind of a brief few words, and I'll hand it over to Doug.
Thank you, Lars. Yes, we did do a preliminary evaluation of the county, looking at 98 buildings, and from those, through our initial analysis, we ended up going on site and surveying 25 of your buildings. We were pleasantly surprised to find that Lars and Bob and team have done actually a fantastic job of keeping the facilities up to date. We look at HVAC, we look at lighting, and all of this has been taken care of. There's very few units that are past their useful life on the HVAC side of things. All of the lighting has been changed, or the majority of all lighting has been changed to LED. So from a ESCO perspective, there wasn't anything that we could assemble where we find outdated equipment, where new equipment and its energy savings will help to pay for that over time. So with that, we gave kind of a clean bill of health back to Lars on our preliminary audit analysis, and just letting him know that unfortunately for us, we can't find a project to assemble, but it just means you're doing everything really great. So Lars, back to you.
All right, thank you, Doug. I wish he hadn't said my name, because he did say Bob Allen, Facilities Superintendent, who I had hoped would be able to be here, because he deserves, and his staff deserve all the credit. They have, over a number of decades, to be quite honest, made that a priority, that being energy conservation. Doug mentioned LED upgrades, HVAC. These improvements are not commonly done by county staff. Most commonly, those are projects that are contracted out. Upgrades, it's one thing to go and change a filter. It's another thing entirely to upgrade a building's HVAC system, and that's what your staff does, and they deserve a lot of credit. So I'm thankful that we're in an age that we're recording these, so that Bob Allen, Aiden Pearson as the lead worker, and all the facilities maintenance technicians that we have get the credit, because while it's, kudos to them. It's unfortunate for Train, but this is what we wanted, right? I don't want to hand over to Train any money for energy conservation. Let's see. We've done it ourselves, and so that's a good thing. It does not mean that there aren't opportunities. The B of this presentation is the condition of county buildings. There are opportunities, certainly needs there that extend beyond energy conservation. But I do want to highlight the couple of recommendations that aren't necessarily energy conservation based. They're more about alternative power generation. Really is the solar panel recommendations that are in the packet. Specifically, there's about 8 or 10 buildings that they proposed recommended facilities at, along with electric vehicle charging stations as a component of the recommendations. You'll see in your budget in the next couple of days, one of those projects is in there. And I also want to highlight some preliminary information that I believe the county received for the libraries, about a grant that librarian Christopher Veach and I worked on, which includes solar at those 3 libraries. So all of which were recommended here. So we have a somewhat of a path forward, but we do want to continue looking at opportunities for solar. It wouldn't be through an ESCO approach, it would be through pursuing it on our own. So this was an encouraging report to read, but at the same time, it doesn't lead to a next step with them. So we're saying at this point the recommendation to not move ahead with Train on the ESCO component of Train, which, by the way, is uniquely different from the advanced energy side of what Train is pursuing. So that really does wrap up my presentation, and I believe Doug's. I do want to thank Doug. He came in about halfway, actually near the early stages, but was wonderful to work with, and had his staff had a lot of expertise that they brought to the table. So thank you, Doug. Thank you, Train and the board. Happy to answer any questions on item A. I can jump into item B if you prefer, or answer any questions here.
Supervisor Spatier?
Just a quick question, because I've always put it with the energy conservation, but maybe it is part of item B. But were windows looked at to see if there is a need for an upgrade to be able to seal the building up and make it a little bit more insulated?
It's A and B, and I think Doug can probably answer a little bit more about the level of detail they looked at for energy conservation purposes. But windows are a large component of the building condition assessments. But Doug, do you recall, or can you comment on the window? Really, the building envelope, I guess, is a better way to say it across the board.
Yes, we did not go into the building envelope at that time during the preliminary analysis that we were doing. We were looking at some of the larger areas, but no. The quick answer is no. We did not get into building envelope.
But we'll get into the.
Oh, absolutely, yes, we will. We won't get into that granular level of detail during the presentation, but it is a component of that assessment. So.
All right.
If there aren't any other questions, I can move on.
Supervisor Simon?
No, not so much questions, just comments. Glad to see this report being done. I think the timing is perfect as we look at the opportunities. Myself and Chair Crandall obviously did a press conference with Congressman Thompson about the opportunities that will be coming down through the Inflation Reduction Act and other opportunities there. So as we've always talked about with the board, I know we're doing stuff for the roads, having projects that are ready to go, important, having that plan for basically shovel-ready projects, let's use that term, as we move forward, I think is very important for our opportunities to capitalize on those dollars that are going to be coming down. But I did have a couple of questions on some of the proposed ones. One would be social services, because we don't own that building.
No.
So that's a question.
Yeah, we included social services because they have a long-standing lease agreement with, at that facility, and because it's one of the largest buildings in the county. But you are right, it is not county-owned, and anything that is pursued there would have to be done under the terms of the lease agreement.
Okay, and obviously the courthouse parking lot, it's great to see that project, at least on paper, as a conceptual idea, because we've been talking about that for quite a while. I know you've been looking at it too, to look at those opportunities. The only other building or area that I was wondering if was looked at, Lars, or is our, I don't know what we call it, right, the fleet yard, or where the cars are down here. Was that area looked at?
It was considered, Doug, this is the central garage, yeah.
What's the term?
Central garage or.
The central garage, there we go, okay.
So it wasn't a recommendation for solar. They did include those facilities with respect to the HVAC and LED lighting, but it didn't stand out, I think, probably because of looking at the utility billing, that it really wouldn't generate a project that would have a whole lot of cost savings from solar. And I see Doug nodding his head that's likely what occurred. So.
Okay. I guess my question would become, if we're going to be moving towards changing our fleet, which that needs to be a long-term focus of hybrid vehicles and other things, I think that charging station opportunity there, that's the prime one for us. I know besides the courthouse that everybody parks at every day, for the actual fleet for our employees that'll be using those vehicles in the future. So that's the only reason I brought it up, just to ask that question.
Absolutely. I'm glad you did. That's a conversation that extends certainly beyond public services,
Yeah.
but it is entirely within the county and the county fleet. If there is a pursuit for electric, then these EV charging stations and solar to support them is a necessary component of the infrastructure to have there. So, but it was not included in there for that reason.
And I'll just follow up on that. I appreciate that Supervisor Simon is constantly bringing up the idea of when are we going to start shifting over to some more renewable energy for our vehicles. We have a large number of vehicles. And to me, that's part of energy conservation. And so I hope it could be a part of that conversation when we go back through this again, because we're going to have to figure out the idea for energy conservation is not necessarily just so that we could be good to the planet and we're conserving energy. It's also for our pocketbooks. And in the long run, it's going to help us be able to shift our budget from spending it on energy to being able to spend it on services and projects and things like that. So I would love to see it kind of morphed into what are we doing to conserve energy when it comes to our vehicles as well.
Okay. Yeah, this, just to emphasize, this was focused on the facilities component of it, but absolutely, I can carry that on to the right folks that would need to look at that and just pass on the recommendation, I suppose.
All right. On A, I guess I'll go ahead and open it up for the public briefly. Not seeing any hands up or in Zoom, so I'll bring it back to the board for B.
Okay. At this point, maybe I'll thank Doug for joining and send you on your merry way. So thank you, Doug.
Sorry, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right. So item B, facilities condition assessment for county facilities. In the summer of 2021, and actually while I'm talking, I believe, Johanna, you have a presentation that maybe you could share that. In the summer of 2021, Public Services contracted with a company called the Gordian Group. It was actually completed through a GSA contract that they have, and they did what's called a pilot project for the library facilities. We wanted to get a sense of would we benefit from a facilities condition assessment on a countywide basis, and there was some synergy, I guess you'd say, between county libraries, specifically Christopher Beach, having some interest in facility condition assessment, capital improvement plan, and this approach. So we identified the county libraries to start a pilot project, which was completed. Staff was happy with the completion of that assessment and the presentation of the actual program that we would have our hands on after the fact. And so we did take the step into having Gordian do an overall county facility assessment. The facility condition assessments, while it was not boots on the ground for every single building in the county. There were about 35 buildings, I believe, that we actually had boots on the ground, full inspection by Gordian staff. The remainder of the county facilities, which are largely the smaller, less occupied facilities, to the tune of about 95 buildings, were what's called modeled. So in that case, we provided Gordian with all the information that we have for those buildings, down to the building system level, and they modeled those buildings using a program, essentially to get a sense of what are the common systems that might need to be upgraded. And the reason for that was cost savings. It was significantly less expensive to do a modeling approach, and we didn't see that it was a good use of county funds to assess a shed that's sitting out in the field. So we did identify the primary buildings. You'll see the goals of the assessment that are up here, answering a couple of key questions. Number one, what do we own? I know that sounds odd, but let's identify not only what buildings, but what building systems are in each of those buildings. The second piece is what are the needs, which essentially, as it says right there, what condition are our facilities assets in? Your board is probably more familiar with a pavement condition index that may come to the board, on a recurring basis. You might be familiar with a 0 to 100, 100 being good, 0 being bad. Well, you need to reverse your mindset. For whatever reason, the facility industry does 0 to 1, and 0 is good and 1 is bad. It essentially identifies what condition our buildings are in and what are the needs. And then the third column there is at how much. Obviously, what are the costs of all these needs? A common term would be deferred maintenance, but also necessary, big picture renovations. And then the last part is what is first. How do we identify what to tackle first with limited funds? A part of this presentation really is not only the presentation of the facility condition assessment report, but also the next step into a capital improvement plan process that will be hopefully a board adopted approach, which is not presented here, but it just gives you an indication of what the next steps are. So you see here the goals of the assessment. This is just a generic presentation, or a generic graph that shows on the left, you've got our annual needs. Here's what we know we actually need to do, and how much do we have on the right, annual budget wise. So we know there's a gap, and so how do we bridge that gap? Too many needs, not enough money. So go ahead. What should we do first? And let me pause at this point. These are just a few of the slides from the full presentation in there for the sake of brevity and really just hitting on the high level topics. I wanted to synthesize this down here a bit. But in short, what should we do first? When they assessed all the buildings, identified the projects that they would see need to be done, they put them in buckets. What are the must-dos? What are the things that we should just run to fail and replace it then? What projects can we hold for major renovation? And then lastly, what requires additional decision making? So go ahead. All right, so this is essentially the summary of a full-blown, a whole lot of work that went into what do we have. So on the right, you'll see that about 130 buildings were assessed. As I mentioned earlier, 35 were done with a full facility condition assessment. 95 buildings were modeled for a little less than 500,000 square feet, a value of $193 million. So that's what you as a County Board of Supervisors own, essentially. That's the to replace those buildings. That's what it would cost. 5-year needs. Now that's a lot, $90 million. That's what they're saying in the next 5 years we need. Now, a lot of that is based on the modeling, which we are still working with to kind of right size it, because there are some components of that modeling piece that need to be, I'll just say, tweaked. But on the right-hand side, condition. What condition are our buildings in? So this is kind of the 30,000-foot elevation piece right now, and that is that we're in the fair category. So 0.39. Again, 0 being good and 1 being bad. So next slide. All right. Now, again, because I didn't get into the granular level, this slide and the next one are not a part of they were not included in your board packet. And the idea here is the next steps. What are we going to do with the information presented? These facility condition assessments, they identified the condition of the building as it is, and what systems need to be replaced or what can be done to maintain or simply replace what is existing. It does not factor in the other factors. Is there an operational need to expand? Is there a need to build somewhere else? So really what this facility condition assessment looks at is the buildings as they are and maintaining them in the same state and the same use that they are. But that is not when you receive capital improvement project requests. Very rarely is it something that straightforward. Coming from my department, sure. A roof project, maybe some extreme exterior renovations. You mentioned windows earlier. That could be a significant component. But most of the projects that you see are want type projects. They're certainly needed, but they're not. It's more about separate from the existing infrastructure. There's some other driving force, and so. I think it's important that we identify a process to create a capital improvement plan that factors in a variety of different factors. The next slide goes into it, but don't go there quite yet. But this would be the process that I would propose that the board, and this is just a generic slide that shows, all right, what would a CIP process, a capital improvement plan process look like? We receive nominations from department heads. We evaluate and have a resolution for approving of those facilities. We score them, put them in a plan, and we complete them, and we go through that cycle. And the idea on the next slide really is the heavy hitter here is just example criteria that would factor in above and beyond a facility condition assessment. What's the public benefit of any given project? Is there a legal or regulatory mandate? Is it critical to life, health, or safety? Are we doing the project to maintain the existing infrastructure or rehab it or renovate it? What's the community impact? Is the project ready? Factor in equity and how about the funding? Is there funding availability for the project? So the idea there is that as a part of the previous slide, as a part of the scoring, Joanne, if you could go back to the previous slide, the scoring piece so there's some subjectivity to that, and so what I would propose is a CIP process that factors in or that creates a committee that would review projects that come in on a recurring basis. We go through the budget process, and there's a time when those could be submitted. They would be reviewed, scored on an objective basis, factoring in subjective factors, and then that would lead into a capital improvement plan. The county has to my knowledge, never had a facilities capital improvement plan that is certainly board adopted and certainly updated on an annual basis. And that's what I would be proposing. That would be a board directed action that Public Services and the Administrative Office would lead with input, with project proposals from other departments and from Public Services as well, managing those facilities. And it would be just that. It would be a capital improvement plan that gives us a path forward. So I recognize that this presentation was very high level. There's a lot more information in the slides that are included in your board's packet. Furthermore, we have a lot. Plenty more detailed information that is in the program that we now have our hands on. We can look at any given building and dial down into a great level of detail, and we're going to be able to use that to our benefit. That would factor into one component of a scoring mechanism, and those are just example criteria. Those, the criteria that the board would ultimately approve. What I would envision is that we would create some scoring criteria and a process that ultimately the board would provide input on, and we move on from there. So with that completion, I realize that it does not go into the level of detail, but knowing that our buildings are in a fair condition does point back to the fact that our staff are doing a wonderful job maintaining an old and still aging infrastructure. I don't believe it was up there, but the average age of our buildings is I believe it's 50. So we are very, very soon, with every year that goes up. So there's a lot of work to be done, but happy to answer any questions at this point.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I don't have any questions. I think this is absolutely what we need so that we can incorporate this into our budget, having a basic concept of understanding what do we need to pay to maintain these buildings, and saving a specific portion over the course of 5-10 years or whatever it is to make sure that we have the funding and we don't reactively try to find money to be able to make the fixes that we need. We need to be prepared for it and plan for it, and this does this for us. This makes budgeting a whole lot easier and making sure that we have the funds available to us. So this is something I've been waiting for since we had the original conversation, so I appreciate it. This is exactly what we need.
All right. So I'll open it up to the public, or did you have something?
No, I completely agree. Just same conversation we had earlier, having that long-term plan and ready to go. The worst thing we could do is just keep pushing stuff off and then get to an end of life on a building, especially with the roofs, other conditions that we have going on. I know we're taking small steps, but just as Supervisor Sabatier said, this allows us to that long-term planning to make sure the facilities that we're using to give our constituents the services they're asking for is very important. So Lars, I appreciate this, and yeah, it gives us the roadmap forward, so thank you. And I know, as you said, you guys will, your department, Bob and everybody, will go through and look at these facilities. This is kind of a high level. As we move through that process, this will allow you to bring that real focused project to the board so we can look at that during the budgeting process. So I appreciate that. The windows that were talked about, other things that are done. And, I should have made the comment earlier too, to your department on all the improvements that have already been done on the buildings with the lightings and other things. It'd be neat, and I don't know if it's in here, you can tell me, just on some of the investments you've already made with switching out the lighting, HVAC, the savings that the county is currently seeing, and how that's going to be enhanced through these two agenda items that you brought today.
Okay, make sure I'm understanding correctly. You're talking about how much cost savings we've generated from doing these? Is that?
Well, I know that you guys have made changes with the, the lights and, what type of lights are being used in the facilities and other things, and all those are, those are energy saving. They're minimal, but they are positive steps in direction. So I didn't know if at any point you guys had something like that.
Okay, yeah, jumping back.
Sorry, I don't.
No,
I know, I should have said it earlier. So
not at all. No,
you need to let me know if we're still on the A and B, so.
Okay, so yeah, to point back to the energy piece, the type of projects that they envisioned, the energy companies, would be replacing lights, replacing HVAC, and because they identified that these are LED, you know, that we have upgraded those. A lot of those projects aren't going to be in the facility condition assessment, but they're also not factored in, though we can. The program has certainly the power to put a higher priority on energy savings projects, but those are more of the subjective type of factors as opposed to the objective. Hey, we want energy to be a higher priority than you know, age of the building, whatever it might be. So it's kind of a roundabout answer, and I'm not trying to dance around it.
I guess my comment was the great work that your department has already done on these low-hanging fruit opportunities with the lighting and other things. We already are seeing cost savings just by you guys being proactive of what you can have done with your department and your folks as you guys see those opportunities as changing out light fixtures and those types of things, because that is a cost savings. I mean, if you're using the older bulbs, you know, it costs more to run those. So I'm just trying to give the credit that is due for your department of being, you know, foresight of, you know, keeping it off of this program, but how do we do those things to be proactive? So I hope I'm saying it the right way. I want to give you the credit that's deserved in those small changes.
Okay, I appreciate that. In my obstinate manner, I guess I just didn't hear it, and I'll pass it on to the facility staff. Whenever, you know, whenever you or anyone who hears this, they see the guys in the blue shirts working, you know, give them a pat on the back, and they're going from one thing to the next. There's a lot on their plates, and they take it personally. So they're doing a great job, and I appreciate you saying that.
All right. With that, I'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item on the agenda, A or B, I suppose? And I'm not seeing anyone in the chambers, so I'll bring it back to the Zoom. Not seeing any hands up, bring it back to the board, and wanted to see possibly, Lars, do you have the direction you need?
I do. I think the recommended actions in there were on A, direct staff to pursue solar photovoltaic projects, and I'll maybe to clarify that, you know, pursue them as in develop the projects, have them so that we can get to a point where they would be shovel ready. And then on B, direct staff to develop a capital improvement plan process that would then come back to the board for approval.
All right.
Yes and yes.
Yes,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
All right.
And thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. And so with that, we'll go ahead and close this item, and we will move on to our next item. You guys want to push through on this item, right? We're good? Okay. Because it was scheduled at a different time, so we'll go forward. Presentation by U.S. EPA Region 9 Sulfur Bank Mine Superfund Site Team regarding progress towards a cleanup plan. And with that, it looks like Scott DeLeon is on, and we'll go ahead and give the floor to him.
Yes, good morning, Board. Deputy Director Della Giannis is not available this morning, so I've been asked to make a short introduction for this item. As you may recall, your board received a presentation on April 19th from the U.S. EPA team that is overseeing the cleanup efforts of the Sulfur Bank Mercury Mine Superfund site. Today's item is an update on their plans and specifically to give the board and members of the public an opportunity to provide input on the timing and venue for the planned public meetings and engagement opportunities. Hopefully I got all that right. And so with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Gavin Pauley and Carter Jessup with the U.S. EPA, who will be leading the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate it. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? Good morning. Board of Supervisors, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. As Scott mentioned, the purpose here is just to provide you an update of progress towards the cleanup or the release of the proposed plan for the cleanup of the Sulfur Bank Mercury Mine site. We presented to you back in April, and at that time we had hoped that we would be at this time giving you the details on our cleanup plan, but the cleanup plan has not yet been released, and so I instead wanted to give you an update on where we are, why that proposed plan hasn't yet hit the street, and give an opportunity for any input, questions, comments, and so forth. So hopefully you're able to see the presentation on screen now. Is that sharing?
No.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So just quickly, the Sulphur Bank team at US EPA is myself as the team lead, the lead for the mine site and the work in Clear Lake. We've got a new team member, Zochi Martinez, who's doing work on the North Wetlands area, just north of the mine site. Karen Juris is our lead for the fish consumption advisory, and you may have seen some of those new fish consumption signs going up around the lake under her direction. And then Gavin Pauley, as was mentioned, is EPA's community involvement coordinator for the site. Really quick outline of what I'm going to talk about, just quick history, description of the public participation process for the proposed plan, briefly touch bases on the tribal consultation process, and then we'll have questions and comments. So I already shared this information, so I'll go quick, but I want to recover it in case there's members of the public on the line who didn't see this before. But just briefly, the Sulphur Bank Mercury Mine site operated from the late 1800s through to the mid 1900s. Over 2.5 million tons of waste were distributed across the 160-acre mine site, and waste was placed directly into Clear Lake, unfortunately, as well. The site was added to the Superfund list in 1990. It's the primary source of mercury in Clear Lake and impacts tribal health and lifeways in significant ways because of its impacts on the resources of Clear Lake and because of its proximity to the Elam Indian colony, which you can see on the map here is immediately adjacent to the mine site. The Bradley Mining Corporation was found liable for the contamination at the mine site under the CERCLA, the Superfund law. And EPA has performed 8 early cleanup actions at the site to date to address the most urgent risks to public and environmental health. So EPA is recommending a cleanup plan for operable Unit 1. That's the area outlined in yellow on this figure. It's the mine site itself, as well as the residential soils on the Elam Indian Colony Tribal Reservation and the neighborhood there to the southwest of the mine site. We have 2 other operable units at the site. Clear Lake itself is considered a part of the Superfund site because of the mercury that the mine is introduced into the lake. And then operable unit 4 is this North Wetlands area, and actually partly as a result of the tribal consultation process that I'm going to provide a quick update on, we've expanded the boundaries of this operable unit 4 to include this study area to the east and south. And these are lands that are intended for transfer to the Elam tribe in the future. So the draft document is undergoing internal reviews and approvals. We have been engaged in tribal consultation, which I'll explain more on the next slide. We are still aiming for a fall 2022 release of our proposed cleanup plan. Based on input that we've received from the community during regular monthly meetings that we've been hosting, we're planning to open that proposed plan for public comment for a 120-day comment period rather than the minimum 30-day. We understand, it's going to be landing right around the holidays. We also understand that in general, the month of October is a challenging time for many of the tribal communities in Lake County because there's a lot of ceremonies and other activities that would occupy their time and attention. So we wanted to accommodate those, so we extended that comment period. The outreach when we release the proposed plan will include coordination with various tribal nations in the county, local agencies, community groups. I'll be posting a full presentation about the proposed plan on YouTube and distributing that for viewing, posting in local newspapers, both electronic and virtual. We're planning on doing announcements on local radio, and we'll be hosting at least 6 meetings to discuss the document, and that's part of why we're here today to talk with you all. So I mentioned tribal consultation. We've been engaged informally with the Elam Indian Colony since at least 2014, really since before then, but that's when we our work with them really intensified. Formal consultation was initiated last fall, and we've had meetings with leadership as well as at the staff level. We've made adjustments to our proposed plan to accommodate their concerns and wishes, as well as making commitments to additional data collection to hopefully further address their comments in the future, their concerns in the future. And coordination with other tribal nations has been entirely, well, so far has been informal coordination. We've been holding monthly coffee chats that tribal representatives are invited to. Those are sort of informal opportunities for discussion of various topics related to the site. And we plan to offer a site-wide update for leadership of all interested Lake County tribes in the next month or so. So with that, I mentioned our 120-day comment period on the proposed plan. There are 6 engagement opportunities being planned. The kind of rough timing of those is on screen to the right. I guess the first of those is now. As I previously indicated, we'd hoped at this time that the proposed plan would already be released, and so I could be talking through the details of that at this time, but that's not the case. So we are still hopeful that by November the document will be released and we will be able to roll out this engagement timeline that you see here. Tentatively, we are looking at Canocti Casino Resort and the Moose Lodge as venues for these meetings. We're also going to have one fully online question and answer session for those who are unable to participate in person. If anyone has questions, comments, concerns, input on this approximate schedule and these venues, if you have any other recommendations on other venues maybe we should be giving more serious consideration to, we'd love to hear from you. And with that, if you have any other questions, concerns, you're welcome to contact me at the contact information on screen, or Gavin Polly, the Community Involvement Coordinator. His email address and phone number is there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. I'd like to just highlight as well that the presentation that was conducted at the Clear Lake Oaks, well, it was the East Region Town Hall at the Moose Lodge, that went really well. There was a lot of questions asked and a lot of feedback. I know too, I think are you all going to meet with the Keys group on the 20th this weekend? Is that
We haven't gotten follow-up on that. So we're trying to make ourselves more available so that if there's any sort of local groups that would like an update, that would like to request an update, we're happy to try to accommodate that. But as far as the meeting in the Keys this weekend, I don't think that's something that's we've been specifically asked to participate in.
And just to follow up, working with Holly Harris and Chuck Lamb, I know they were experienced with this in the past decades when in regard to this, and then the discussion that we had also about the Spring Valley Lake Recovery Project and maybe working out a solution to use that sediment in some phase of the capping or something like that, maybe coordinating that, because it looks like there's a possible situation where some of these projects will overlap. And so appreciate the ability to discuss that with us. So thanks.
Absolutely, and I've been looking into that and look forward to continuing to engage with you on that.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. What is the actual guidelines that you have to follow for the number of meetings that you need to conduct in order to say, we've done this part, we can move on to the next?
Yeah, the document needs to be made broadly available to the public, and we need to host public meetings where the public has an opportunity to provide formal comment, where we'll have a court reporter to log those comments. As far as I'm aware, there's not a specific requirement regarding the number of meetings. It's sort of best judgment in terms of what meets that threshold of being broadly available to the public.
Okay, and the reason I say that, and I know it's new, because now there's going to be a new document to review and provide input, but I know in some of the meetings that I've been involved with the EPA regarding sulfur bank mercury mine, has been that there's been meetings, and we've been slowly waiting over the course of the last 32 years to get to this point. Glad we're here. I guess my question is more towards Supervisor Crandall, since this is in his district. Is 120 days, is it necessary to extend it that long? Can it be 90 days? Can it be less? Because we seem to be a little bit behind where the document should have already been available. Can we back that up so that we can try to get back on the normal timeline that we should have been on as of last year? Just trying to see what can be done to make sure we do get the input and the feedback, but that we can try to regain the lost time that we're losing right now by not having the document available.
I mean, I would just defer to EPA and what they've agreed to do. They mentioned reasons why they wanted to extend it, so I would just defer to them.
It's a fair comment, though, and I can say on that that we are not, we're doing a lot of parallel tracking right now. I'm getting things in place to be sure that we're hitting the ground running after the document is circulated. So that additional review period hopefully should provide the public more opportunity to weigh in, but shouldn't lead to further delay in progress towards the actual cleanup work that we're all waiting for.
And if I remember correctly, for the future timeline, was it looking at 2024 for hopes to get started with the actual cleanup action?
Yeah, 2024, 2025 is the time frame that we're aiming at. There's a lot of work to do before then, a lot of detailed design work, and all that needs to be contracted and funded, and so that whole process can take time. But that is still the sort of the best case scenario for when we would be moving dirt on site.
Okay. Well, I would just, I guess my final point is for the environmental justice of what has happened to those who live nearby. Let's hope we can keep to that schedule and that we can, like you said, have parallel tracks to make sure that we stay on that and we don't see that being further delayed, because I really want to see the action coming, and it takes a lot of steps to get there, but I just want to make sure that the timeline does not get pushed back any further.
Yeah, thank you for that. I absolutely agree.
And from what I understand in the statement that he made, I think that's the point of the extension, was to ensure that the local people that are affected by it have the time to conduct their ceremonial, entities and ceremonial, they conduct ceremony during October and early November, so it makes sense why they pushed it back in that aspect, so that they don't interrupt that in the near area, because there's 2 ceremonial roundhouses on Elam, so I don't think that conducting a meeting with the core public would be ideal. They wouldn't get any feedback or discussion, because most of the other folks, even in Big Valley, would be busy during that time, so it makes sense.
And the reason I was asking is because I saw it was extended all the way through like February or something like that, and that's why I was asking, can we reduce it a little?
Yeah, it would be ideal. Yeah, if there's a way to, expedite it, that's great, but.
Okay. Yeah, and like I say, I think that as parallel tracking, I think is probably our best bet in terms of making sure that comment period does not delay or disrupt the progress towards the implementation of the actual work. But we'll also talk internally. I'll take that feedback back. There's a concern about that long comment period delaying things. Appreciate that.
All right. Any other comments? And so I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public? Please come up to the microphone and state your name for the record, and we'll start your 3 minutes.
My name is Joan Moss. I worked as a tutor at Elam from 88 to 92. I still have ties. I understand this gentleman here is William Fox from Lake County. Is that true?
No, that's not.
I'd like to know what his name is.
His name is Carter Jessup from EPA.
Jessup. Carter Jessup. Okay, I've tried to get a hold of him. There are people who own property at Elim Indian Colony. I know them personally. They want to give input. They want to know what's going on. They are disenfranchised from the tribe. There are 20, I would say an estimated 20 people who are disenfranchised, Indians, Native Americans, who, and this family owns property. Where do they go to get information? How can they reach the present tribal chairman? We have tried to reach the present tribal chairman a number of different ways. And how does this document get publicized to the regular accepted tribal members and the disenfranchised tribal members of Elim Indian Colony? This particular family is fearful of going to their own property at Elim. And people are threatening them and who are not even disenfranchised tribal members, who might be tribal members at Big Valley. So it's a very complex situation. And I want to help to ensure communication to all people involved. And I will come and get his name and number. Could you give me your email, please, Mr. Jessup?
Yeah, absolutely. I can put that back up on screen here. Let's see.
It's got the website on it and everything.
I really don't hear very well, but I'd like to have your phone numbers.
That should
Thank you.
be on screen there.
I'll copy them down. I hope to work with all factors. Thank you.
Thank you,
Some
Joan.
of them I taught to read when they were young. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Carter, I don't know if you can elaborate on the statement that was made.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. To the extent that there are sectors of the community that we're not reaching, that's a serious concern. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have their voice heard. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward. My contact information is on screen. If you're offering to assist us in reaching these individuals, I greatly appreciate that. As far as your question of how we're going to make sure that folks know about the proposed plan and know how to provide input, I did mention we're planning on putting it out in local newspapers, both in print and online, advertising it on the local radio. We're also going to have a hard copy sort of flyer that's going to be distributed. The intent is to put those in mailboxes on the Elim Indian Colony. You know, we're trying to go about this in a broad way to make sure we reach everyone, but the help of anyone in the community who might know folks who we don't know about, you know, word of mouth is a powerful way to also get the word out, and I really appreciate that.
And so, Carter, I just wanted to remind you that I think it was last year, it got you in touch with one of the liaisons to the tribal council, even though the entities are at some sort of odds. At the same time, there is a representative for the local community, that is Rose Steele, and then I'm sure you've had your communications with the leadership intact. So just wanted to highlight that bridge has been offered, and I've given you the contact information for that as well. And so I notice on your the engagement timeline that in some areas you're going to have like a Canocti Vista, you're going to have an open house and whatnot. So just highlighting what I see here, and that we made that connection before as well. And if you need more help with that, I'm glad to assist. Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, Mr. Jessup, just wanted to also offer, if you're looking to offer something closer to proximity of the mine area, that may be looking at City Hall in the city of Clear Lake and offering a meeting there in the chambers. That's a possibility, just in case you're looking for another venue.
Thank you.
And you could always reach out to me, and I can help you make that happen.
Okay, appreciate that offer.
All right, any other comments from the public? I'm looking online. I don't see any hands up, so I'll bring it back to the board. Any other comments or questions, concerns, or anything like that? Right, Carter, I don't know if you have anything else to add, or?
No, just to thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and we look forward to further development and expeditious improvement on this, so thanks again. With that, I think we're at a point where we can take a lunch break since we've covered all of our timed items. Looks like it's 12:03, so we'll come back at 1:05. How does that work for everybody? All right, thank you. And so we'll close for lunch break, and appreciate you tuning in with us.